Okay, can we have a roll call?
Dr. Beebe?
Present.
Dr. Beebe is present. Ms. Bofi?
Here.
Ms. Bofi is present. Ms. Bradford?
Here.
Ms. Bradford is present. Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Mr. Garvey is present. Mr. Guillot?
Present.
Mr. Guillot is present. Ms. Hill?
Present.
Ms. Hill is present. Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Lee is present. Dr. Moranti?
Present.
Dr. Moranti is present. Ms. Orange-Jones? Ms. Orange-Jones is not present. Mr. Romer?
Here.
Mr. Romer is present. Ms. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Smith is present. You have quorum.
Okay, can we have the first item, please?
Your consent agenda is ready for approval, adding item 3.1.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. I'll move. Mr. Guillot, we have a second. Ms. Bofi, do we have any objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item.
Next item is item 2.1 on page 1. Consideration of a report on types 2, 4, and 5 charter contracts and requests for amendments. The department recommendation is to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Bofi and Ms. Bradford. Do you have any comments from the department?
May I just make one comment? This relates to Lycée Français. This is a school that has been much talked about over the last 4 or 5 years at the BESE level. I just want you to know, as you know, 2 years ago, members, we took steps to intervene at the governance level at the school. There was significant board transition at the school level. And I want you to know that I'm very pleased with where the school is. I think there are, of course, as there are in any school, ways that can be improved. But overall, the operations of the school are steady. Financially, it's very steady. Academically, it's moving forward. And they're seeking to focus on their K through 8 level, so they're not going to expand into a 9th grade per their original schedule. That's why you have a modification in front of you. That's the only change in front of you. But overall, because this came up, I just wanted to provide you a brief update. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Bradford.
Superintendent, will there be students displaced by this move? And if so, how many?
No, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay, any other questions from BESE members? We have several comment cards. Can we have George Britton come down, please, and Angela Nichols? Okay, then can we have Scott Richard? Wave from Scott Richard. Hello. Good morning.
No.
No, this is on.
This is on Lycée Français. That item is in 2 more items, and it'll be clear from my comments when that item comes up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did they put in? Do they have other cards in for the item that they particularly? If not, let's adjust those cards. Okay. Thank you. That would conclude or not conclude, depending on how you look at it, the cards on Lycée Français. Do we have any objections to the motion that's on the floor? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is on page 9, item 2.2, consideration of a memorandum of understanding with Innovators in Milestones for the 2014-15 school year. The department recommendation is to approve, and the MOUs have been passed out. They're at your spots on the dais.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve to get this on the floor? Ms. Bofi?
Second.
Second. Mr. Guillot? Does the department like to tee this up?
I do, and I'm actually, in light of conversations that I've had with my staff this morning, I'm going to suggest to the board that you change your motion, that you amend your motion, excuse me, and defer or issue a substitute motion to defer the item. However, I want you to know that I say that with some regret, and let me give you an explanation for why I'm recommending this, and I'll give you a history of this. As you recall, in August, this is a school located in Jefferson Parish. This is a Type 2 school. It's located on the west bank of Jefferson Parish. This school was without a building potentially because it was in a difficult spot with its landlord, which is the Jefferson Parish School Board. It did not have a principal, and it had been approved to operate pending its management organization being approved. It lost its management organization. It then lost another management organization, and so we had a school without a building, without a principal, without a management organization. Well, they kept their building for a year. They kept their principal, or they got a new principal, and they have yet to have a management organization. What I told you at the time was, given the late date, school was about to start, I would commit to negotiating a memorandum of understanding with them. I believe that part of a responsible thing to parents is to provide a location to the parents so that they know where their kids are going to go to school next year. And it is not a fair thing to say to parents, well, you sign your kids up and you might be in New Orleans East or you might be in Metairie. Who knows where you're going to be. And unfortunately, at this time, this school does not have a location for the 2015-16 school year yet lined up, and it does not appear in the immediate future that they will have one. However, we are at an impasse with this organization as to, and this is the critical point for members to understand, this is the critical thing I would ask you to understand. We are at a negotiating impasse as to the date by which they must secure, and this is the critical thing for you to understand, we are at a negotiating impasse as to the date by which they must secure a new facility for the 15-16 school year. And it is my position that they should have to secure it by the end of this calendar year. I think they owe that to parents. Now, I have, based on my conversations with my staff this morning, I do not want to put you in the position of dragging you into the weeds of this negotiation. I don't think having to ask you to approve an MOU that Milestone, their board has not approved. I'm not going to ask you to do that, and if you will accept my guidance on that, I would suggest to you that you amend or you substitute your motion. However, I believe that we should have to bring this back to you, and we will continue to work through this, but the sticking point is the date by which they have to have this building in place. Now, here's the issue. At some point, you as a board will have to step in and say, hey, wait a minute, you're the ones that hold this contract with this group, and you can no longer abide as a contract holder with this group if they don't have a building in place for their kids and families. So I say that to you knowing that you are the other party to this contract, and you may have to intervene if I'm unable to negotiate this sticking point in the contract with them. So I turn this to you, but I wanted to give you the background.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
I will make a substitute motion to defer on this item as the superintendent requested. And I would say that I agree strongly with this position that the parents, they need to come up with a building, a site, and be able to identify that sooner rather than later, because you can't anticipate any process going smoothly if the parents aren't informed of where the location is going to be. And so I would tell this group that I would negotiate this. I would listen strongly to your suggestion on how we handle this process, because I'm very hesitant to grant an extension of this without a site being secured and without being able to tell parents where their kids are going to go to school. So I'll make a substitute motion to defer on this item.
Okay.
I second.
Second by Ms. Hill. Ms. Beebe?
Superintendent White, I do applaud you on that recommendation, and would ask, is this consistent with other recommendations of any groups coming before BESE in the past? Did we approve the recommendation to defer, or did we outright reject the application?
Well, this is not an application. This is a pre-existing school. I think this is an uncommon situation. I've not encountered this situation before. This is a pre-existing school that just lost its lease. that's the situation. I mean, this is a school that is not managing its business properly.
Okay, then my question is, in the event that they can't secure a facility, and so at the end, so what is the timeline? Is it December 2014?
Well, here's what I'm saying to you, and I want, because this, if I can't negotiate this, it's coming back to you. And I'm suggesting to you, I'm asking your permission to allow me another month, essentially, another 2 months. But I'm trying to hold the line with them, and I'm saying, I'm telling them, sign on the dotted line, you need to get a building by the end of December. Because I think parents are owed that. Because, they'll start signing their kids up for school in January and February. They believe they should be able to wait until the late spring to have a building. I just don't think that's fair. However, at some point, if I'm unable to negotiate that agreement with them, you're going to have to use your power as the other party to the contract to end your contract with them and say you can't operate a school anymore. And which was the original decision that was on the table when we agreed to have the MOU with them in the first place. In other words, in my view of it, they're not being a good partner to the agreement you allowed me to undertake with them, which was to establish an MOU as an exercise in good faith, because I was prepared to recommend to you that you end your relationship with them, and you told me that's okay, go negotiate something with them. Well, they've not negotiated an agreement with us, so I'm just giving you, and I'm asking for a little bit more leeway.
Yes, Mr. Romer.
Let me make this point. We have entered an MOU with other parties, districts, traditional school districts, quite frankly, as an alternative to perhaps taking over a failing school or a failing district. And these MOUs, whether they're with a charter school or with a district, need to have weight. And the reason we entered an MOU with this particular organization is they were struggling mightily with their management. Short of closing them, we said, this board made the decision, then enter an MOU where we have a bit more oversight than we would traditionally have. That's the only way to keep your doors open. And now we've reached a point where they're trying to negotiate points in the MOU that I believe are unreasonable. And they need to become reasonable on them, or our alternative is to say there will be no MOU and there will be no charter. So, that's kind of where we are right now. And I appreciate the superintendent's motion to defer, or my motion to defer, his suggestion to defer.
Someday I'll be able to make a motion.
Yes, the motion is to defer until December. Ms. Moranti?
This concerns me again, and I appreciate what our superintendent recommended. This is something we should have revoked last spring, and now it's going to be coming back up for possible revocation again. I'm thinking if they haven't met their guidelines, if they haven't met their timelines, that we should state that it'll be revoked, and that we don't have to continue to put John through this process of trying to negotiate something that just doesn't look even possible until they have secured something. So I'm not feeling really comfortable about any deferment. I just think we should be pretty definitive that we will revoke this unless.
There's a legal process that's in the law regarding a hearing and things that have to happen regarding a revocation of a charter school, and I think we want to be very clear that all possibility of satisfying the legal conditions have been met. I think that you taking this step today is a helpful thing. I hope we don't get to that point. If we have to, though, I think this step today will help us meet that threshold.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Bradford?
Yeah, just kind of echoing with Dr. Moranti. In my opinion, I'm wondering, do they really want this school? Because if you aren't willing to negotiate, listen to the advisors, try to improve, if you're just my way or the highway, that is a concern to me. And it may be where we end up. But I just want to say to everyone, I feel like that is part of the issue, that we are trying to help. But if our help is unwanted, then I'm wondering about their position really in needing the school.
There may be, Ms. Bradford, there may be representatives of the board here today. I don't know.
There are.
There are, okay.
Ms. Smith?
And thank you, Superintendent, for your input on this. So even if they did secure a building, let's say, but it was still the feelings that maybe the management was not where it ought to be in the best interest of the school children, we still could vote to not move forward.
No, you have established a contract. I mean, you have a legally binding contract with them. However, the contract has obviously legal requirements within it, and at a certain point, they are not following up on the terms of that contract. At this point, our belief is that at a certain point, they are not doing the things that are entailed in that contract responsibly, and you are obligated to call the question. And I think the debate between us between them, their board, and us, is at what point is it irresponsible? And, for example, their lease runs out June 30th. Well, does that mean that they don't have to advertise a new building until June 29th? I would say not. I would say they need a new building now, because parents start considering schools now.
Yeah.
And New Orleans is not an easy place to find buildings. So your new building might be 10 miles away. This is a school that 2 years ago moved to the other side of the river. Well, that's a big deal. To a different parish. That's a big deal. So, this kind of transition you can't conduct responsibly, and you certainly can't do it in May, and you know that, having obviously been a superintendent. So
the contract actually expires in June?
the lease expires in June. The
lease.
contract doesn't expire for
Okay.
3 years.
Okay.
What I'm suggesting is at a certain point, I'm going to have to come back to you and say, I don't think they're following through on the contract you've established with them, the charter you've established with them, because they don't have a school building.
Right.
And their perspective has been so far that they can wait. My perspective is it has to be soon.
I agree. Okay.
Ms. Hill.
I have several concerns. Not only, one of my concerns is the building, and I guess Superintendent White you can address, because when we look at the MOU, one of the things that's stated in here is the historic performance and the current school performance score. This school has come to us on numerous occasions, and that's been one of the issues that we've been discussing regarding their school performance scores, how they're performing as a school, and not only that, due to the historic performance that they have had throughout the duration of their charter. So I just want us to understand, not only are they having issues with locating a building, but academics is another issue. And for me, even if you can locate a building, but you're still struggling academically, for the kids' sake, they need to be able to be successful academically. So I think we need to look at all of those factors, because one of the things that's stated in here is the historic performance and their current school performance scores. So I don't want us to, not look at that. And I don't know if Superintendent White, if you have an agreement or some kind of timeline or expectations of them to meet certain guidelines within the MOU to outline the academic piece as well.
Well, I'm bringing you a legal concern today. I'm bringing you a legal concern today regarding this school board's following through on a legal obligation. And there is a legal obligation to meet certain performance targets, which is the charter authorizing. If they don't meet those targets in 3 years, then they're out. So that's the legal dimension of that side. But I'm specifically concerned about they don't have a building, and they won't agree to get a building by the end of December. And it may be helpful to hear from members of their board.
Any of the BESE members? Okay, before we go to the speakers, I have some questions for the superintendent. And the first question is, the main issue that you have today is the building, not the lack of a management?
No, I think there are a set of residual issues. Yes, I do. But I think that so I don't want to say the building is the only issue.
Okay.
But if I were in your shoes, I'm trying to paint for you a picture of what I think the most significant and immediate issue is, which is that you have parents who are, from a wide-ranging metropolitan area you have an organization that is saying they're going to get a school building by April or May, and then we're going to turn around and say to them, well, that school building could be 15 miles away in April or May. That to me is just a problem. There are other issues entailed in the MOU that we're working to hammer out. I just think this one is something that if we can't work through, I'm going to be ending up coming back to you and saying this is a serious problem.
Okay. I wanted to share with BESE members some information that I have about the building. The current superintendent in Jefferson Parish is in a, you might say, a state of transition. He has announced that he will be stepping down. He made that announcement a couple of months ago, and he was supposed to step down in December. And then a month or so ago, he said no, he had changed his mind, he was going to step down in October. Then he came back more recently and said no, he changed his mind again, and that he will stay on maybe till November or December. Very chaotic type of a situation. My understanding is that the decision on releasing this building that the school is currently in, which they are leasing from the Jefferson Parish school system, the current superintendent is leaving up to the next superintendent. But until the next superintendent takes over, she can't make any decisions on it. The thought is that the current superintendent may step down after the November 4th elections. He may stay on until the runoff from those elections in December, but it looks like sometime in the November-December timeframe he will be stepping down and the new superintendent will be taking over, which could resolve this issue either positively or negatively, but could resolve the issue then. So that's extra information that I had from living in the community. So with that, do we have any other questions from BESE members before we go to speakers? Okay, hearing none, we have Ms. Barrios.
Retired teacher, St. Tammany. Mine is just a procedural comment, really, because I agree with what's happening here now. But Board Docs says that the MOU would be downloaded prior to the meeting and that you'd be provided with a copy, and has happened quite often. You're given this stuff at the last minute, and it's not on Board Docs. And there's a lot of rhetoric about stakeholder collaboration and input, community input. And there can't be any. This is a public meeting. There can't really be responsiveness if there are no documents. So I would ask that you continue to revisit this and that you provide the public and the board with this information well in advance. I believe the minutes prior to this, or BESE meeting prior to this, said on August the 12th that this MOU would be provided. So I just ask that you consider that. Thank you.
Staff, what were you pointing out to me?
The exec rec says that it will be provided to board members at the meeting. It does not say that it will be uploaded before the meeting. And the only thing that must be posted 10 days prior to a meeting is policy changes.
Okay.
It's not unusual for something to be passed out at a meeting for the board's approval.
Thank
And it
you.
will be uploaded after the meeting.
Ms. Beebe.
But Ms. Davis, I thought that, I think it was based on Ms. Smith's recommendation, a motion a couple of months ago, that we would not present to this board any new information that we would be presented prior to, because it creates some dissension and some
I believe
unnecessary
what Ms. Smith
debate.
requested was for the motion, if there was a motion made at the meeting, if at all possible, that would be provided prior to, to board members. But it's pretty difficult not to have something be passed out at a meeting because things change quickly. As long as, even policy recommendations based on stakeholder input, et cetera.
Okay, we have another speaker, Juan Hernandez.
Good morning, members of the board. Juan Hernandez. I am a partner at the Traffic Hall Law Firm, but am temporarily actually serving as the interim CEO for Milestone Academy. Stepped out of my practice for a period to help the school get back on track. And I just want to make sure the board understands that I don't know if there's absolute clarity on some of the conversation happening this morning. The reality for this school is that it's been on an upward trajectory for the last 7 to 8 years. It stumbled probably in the 5th or 6th year when it went through its process of moving from one location to another location to a third location, so it got a hit in its population at that time, and its numbers dropped 3 points. The fact of the matter is the school's SPS score today is sitting at a 67.3 and still trajecting upward. The school is projected to hit a 71 this coming school year. It's got a 100% actually new board of directors that I believe is a board of directors committed to what needs to happen in this school. The school board itself terminated its contract with its previous provider. It wasn't that it lost its provider. It terminated its contract because it was not getting a satisfactory school improvement plan from that provider to specifically tell them how that school was going to move forward and improve. It then tried to negotiate with a second provider, and it became clear to them at that point that that second provider was not going to be the right fit for them. But they were coming upon the starting of a new school year, and they didn't have a lot of time to start trying to negotiate with other providers. So this board, being responsible, quickly moved into how do we find the right school leader to take over the reins of this school. And they hired a principal named Beverly Johnson Jelks, who is very well known in the New Orleans area as a turnaround principal. She has been principal of Gentilly Terrace. She's been principal of L.B. Landry High School. She was principal of Murray Henderson K through 8 for a number of years and turned all those schools around and agreed to come in as principal, and we believe has done a fantastic job in resetting the culture of the school, reestablishing the proper culture for teachers and for students. When you walk in that school building today, the students are disciplined. There is learning happening in every classroom as you walk down the halls. So I'm excited that the school has actually turned and pivoted, I think, in a direction that we'll all be proud of in the end, specifically as it relates to the building. So there are some realities there. It is not that the building is not a priority for the school. It is an absolute priority. The fact of the matter is, in the New Orleans market, buildings are very difficult to come by, and the concern was that if we agreed to a December date for having a building, there were a couple of things that became concerns. One, the way the MOU reads today, if there is no building by December 14th, then the charter agreement is revoked or turned in automatically. Well, the reality is it's going to take a few months to get through locating a building, negotiating for a building, et cetera. Now, I negotiate these types of deals on a regular basis, and it takes at least 4 to 6 months typically to be able to secure a facility. But more importantly, as we think about what it means to secure a facility, if they secured a facility in December, they're not going to be able to move into it until June or July, which means that now this charter school, which does not have unlimited resources, will be on the hook for actually having to cover the cost of site control for that building for 6 months. Well, those are dollars that could be spent actually on continuing to improve the school and the education of the children. So, you know, fortunately, we have been working, I think, hand in hand with the superintendent and his staff. We have been having very good conversations. I believe this is the only real sticking point we've come to. And I think we're going to work our way through that as well. In fact, I have no doubt that by the next BESE board meeting, we probably will have resolved that issue as well. But the school is actively looking for a building right now, and it will find one. And the hope is that once the current Jefferson Parish superintendent situation is resolved, there may be an opportunity to stay where we are. But as we think about the building and where it's located, I want you to remember that this is a school that, as a Type 2 charter is allowed, takes students from all over that particular region. There is not one student that lives within 2 blocks of that school. There are not very many students that live within 5 miles of that school. So this school is providing transportation for all 439 students that participate or come to the school. So it has been the school's position that while it is very important for parents to know where the school is going to be, that is not the determining factor as to why people are selecting the school to send their children. And particularly now, as the new principal is on site, as we are getting more effective, high-quality teachers as the curriculum has been improved, and as the culture overall has been improved, we think it is even less of a reason for parents to select the school now, because it is a school that will continue to perform and perform even better as time goes along. So I would just ask the members of the board to consider that as we have these conversations. There's a lot of information that you may not have at this point. You're just kind of getting a real snippet of the overall conversation. There's a lot more to this conversation, and this school is in a much better place than it had been, and it's going to continue to be in a better place.
Mr. Hernandez, before you go, let me ask you, during this turmoil, let me start with this. Did I accurately describe the chaos or chaotic situation in Jefferson Parish with regards to the superintendent's position?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. And it's important to note there that when this chaos started, there was another board in place. And there was an issue, it is my understanding, between the superintendent of schools in Jefferson Parish and the chairman of this board at that time. That didn't become clear to anyone until we started digging into the facts of why we were having issues with trying to get a lease resolved. We didn't think it was going to be a huge issue until I started to have conversations with the superintendent and those around him. Now, I think it's important to note that the school board itself stepped in and said, no, we are not going to conduct this issue that way. We are going to extend this lease because it was unfair in the manner that this matter was being handled. That has been resolved now, and the year extension was granted. And the expectation today is that at the end of the year, we will move to a new building. However, if the new superintendent decides that because the school is improving and because good things are happening, and in fact, probably about one-third of the population at school are Jefferson Parish residents at this point. So we are providing a service in Jefferson Parish that is an important service. It is possible maybe that the new superintendent will be willing to have a conversation about what it takes to allow us to stay at that building, either continuing to lease or to acquire the building, because it does need some improving in order to meet the current needs of the school.
Let me ask one other thing. During this transition period that you've been going through for the last few months, has your student enrollment increased or decreased?
So that is another exciting fact. The student enrollment has increased by about 110 students this year, and that is a direct result of the principal's actions, the board's actions, the recruiting efforts, and the change of shift in culture for the school. Very direct result.
Okay. Any other questions from BESE members?
I have a couple questions.
Superintendent?
Is the board chair here today?
So she's supposed to be here, and I don't know why she's not. My understanding was she was on her way, but I don't know exactly why she's not here yet.
It would seem like an important issue for the board chair to be present to speak about.
I think it's a very important issue. Very important issue.
The enrollment one app system that you all have agreed to be a part of, and I appreciate you all agreeing to be a part of that.
Yeah.
That starts on February 27.
Yes.
That's a booklet that is sent to every family in Orleans Parish.
Yes.
66% of your kids come from Orleans Parish.
Yes.
And it lists a geographic map and an address for every school building in Orleans Parish, which, as you know, any kid in Orleans Parish can go to any school except for the Orleans Parish School Board. Most of their schools don't participate in one app.
Absolutely.
But for you, I appreciate you participating.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think it's important that by February 27 there be an address listed for milestones so that the kids know, or the parents know, where their kids are going to go to school?
Sure. So, Superintendent, let's just so that we can put this in perspective, though. The reality is there aren't going to be a lot of spots available in the school through the one app process. The fact of the matter is the kindergarten spots will be open, obviously, because hopefully they'll all be moving to first grade. But the retention rate has been and hopefully will continue to be very high, which will be attendant to the success that we're having in the school. So theoretically, remember we're talking theory at this point, but theoretically we're only going to have kindergarten spots and maybe a few other miscellaneous spots. So we're not talking about a lot of people that we're impacting.
I'm not interested in, I understand, I know about all that stuff.
Okay.
Would you agree with me that it's important that the families in New Orleans have an address when the booklet goes out,
Sure.
like they do for every other school,
Sure.
as to where your school is going to be located February 27?
Sure. And the reality is
No,
they'll
no,
have an
no, no, no,
address.
no.
They'll have
Is
an
it-
address which will be 2012 Jefferson Highway.
So that's where the school's going to be?
That's where the school is now. Now, if we are fortunate enough to secure a building before then we still can't put that address in the one app listing. We have to say that will be the future location.
See, because
of
what
the
I
school.
see is this. Well, here's the problem I'm in. And I've got a lot of respect for you.
Sure.
You
And
and
I do.
I have worked on things
Yeah.
together, and
Yeah.
you know, I've seen your work in New Orleans. And I appreciate you coming here. But here's what I see and what I'm trying to reflect for my members. I see a CEO who's trying to facilitate a conversation between my agency and a board who doesn't even show up for the discussion. I see a very clear date, February 27, with a real issue, which is that 50,000 kids get a booklet that lists the address of a school system that is just about the largest school system in the state. And it's got an address for every school but one. We put that on paper, and it's a commitment to people, this is where the school is going to be. And that's no joke. But for this school, for some reason, we're sitting here and there's some question as to whether or not your school should have to sign on the dotted line, and the people who are supposed to sign on the dotted line don't even come to the meeting with the people who hold the other end of that contract. And I guess, and I'm not even asking you to defend it, it's not even a question, it's just a statement. I don't get it.
But
and
but
what
I
I'm
think it's a
and I'm
little-
giving you a strong piece of advice in front of my board. Go back to your board and tell them that if we can't move this thing, I'm going to recommend to this board that we not include your school in the February 27 booklet. And that's going to be my recommendation.
So if I can have an opportunity to respond to that, so that everybody is clear about this, this is not a negative relationship between the superintendent or I, because we have a good working relationship. I think there are frustrations on both sides, and I think we have to consider the totality of the circumstances and be very honestly assess the situation. So, first of all, as it relates to whether the board chairman is here or not, factually, she was attempting to get here. Now, why she's not here yet, I don't know. I have no idea what's happened on her way here. I know she called me this morning to say I'm on my way. So I can't explain that. But I'm here. And I'm here to specifically address the facts of the situation. And as much as I respect you, Superintendent, I think we haven't been absolutely on point as to how we describe where we are. Now, the reality is that this school is in a stage of improvement, and it is improving. And it is incumbent upon not just this board, but specifically the staff of the organization to drive student achievement in a manner that results in a satisfactory school performance score, which by all accounts they are doing. In fact, the primary discussion has not been about student performance or academics. The primary conversation for the last month and a half has really been about a facility. And where is that going to be? And how is it going to be? And while that is a critically important matter, it has not been the primary, academics has not been the primary conversation here. Now, academics are critical, and we are moving forward on the academics. And as I have said, this school has been on an upward trajectory as it relates to school performance for the last 7 years. Is it where we want it to be? Absolutely not, and I would be misrepresenting to this board to say otherwise. But it is moving in the right direction, and it is a hair split away from being a C school, which still is not satisfactory, but moving forward. But most importantly, I want you to know it has got a solid management team in place now, meaning a phenomenal principal, great instructional coaches, and a teaching staff that really understands the mission at hand. And so we're driving that. Now, the SABAS model did not work out for this school. That is unfortunate, but it is the reality of where this school is. But it is in a position to be a well-performing school within the state of Louisiana. And I just ask you, Superintendent and your staff, to continue to work with us as we all seek kind of the same goal here, which is making sure the school has everything it needs in order to be a successful school, including a facility, which is important.
Mr. Garfield.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Bofi.
So, and this is for the board. I think that the facility is the main issue here. While academics are always important, we do have a deadline and we do make a commitment to parents, and so I think the facility is a main issue. Now, you talked to us about the situation with the superintendent in Jefferson Parish. There's still a school board. So I'm not sure why these conversations can't get started with the school board that's in place in Jefferson Parish. And if they're going to commit a facility, then they need to hurry up and do so. And if the answer's no, then the answer's no. But this board has known, their board has known, that the timeline on that facility is short. So, John, I hear that you're proposing our December meeting, and then you talked about a February date.
Well, there's two. What I will do is I will bring back to you a status update at the next meeting, and I hope I'll bring back to you a signed MOU. In other words, there's only 2 more meetings between now and when the enrollment system goes out the door. And when it goes to print, there's no more meetings.
Well, and I think going to print is an important piece here, and I'm assuming that that's before February 27th.
It is.
So, I mean, I'm just thinking that it's the Jefferson Parish Board that has to either be interested in this school or they're not, and that information needs to be known sooner rather than later.
Well, I think that, my main point would be the board has to want to engage earnestly with the department in arriving at the MOU that gives you the confidence that we can continue forward, a date when this is going to happen by, and we can all work together with the school board in Jefferson Parish or the superintendent in Jefferson Parish or what have you to get that done.
Well, and I want to make sure everybody knows the board is working earnestly. There has been just a disagreement on this single point, which we will resolve. But I don't want it to be suggested the board's not working earnestly.
Well, there's clearly a disagreement. I just want you, Mr. Hernandez, to be aware, and it's not a personal disagreement between you and me,
absolutely
obviously.
Not, no.
But for your board to be aware that I cannot in good conscience continue to come and update this body all the while the days slip by prior to the enrollment process. So I don't think that there's any action to take. I would suggest to the board again that you defer the item, but to know that there essentially is no more time on the building. It's just not acceptable to say you're going to have a building update after the enrollment process has been done.
Well, just as long as this body understands that it almost sounds like the board's sitting back just waiting for something to happen. This board is aggressively working to take care of the facility issue. It just hasn't been concluded.
Then why isn't the MOU signed? Why won't you agree?
Because
to
we
get
don't
one by the
agree.
end?
Because you have not agreed on a specific date.
No, we've agreed on a specific
listen,
date.
The reality of the MOU, as it stands today, says, look, if you don't have a building by December 14th, locked, signed, done, then you have to voluntarily give up the charter. And so there's a disagreement on that point, and then one of fundamental unfairness.
I've called
Ms.
for the
Beebe?
question. Are there
Do you have
any
any
other speakers?
objections to the calling of the question?
Thank you to the board for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, hearing no objections, we'll call the question. Are there any objections to the motion that's on the floor? Hearing none,
Has the substitute motion been made?
that's the motion that's on the floor. Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is on page 10, item 2.3. Consideration of the Type 2 charter application for Greater Grace Charter Academy in St. James Parish. The department recommendation is to deny.
So moved.
I second.
We have a motion by who? Dr. Moranti, second by Ms. Beebe.
I'd like to make a substitute motion.
A substitute motion? Okay, Ms. Hill?
I'd like to, I don't know, Superintendent White, you have something you want to say before I make this motion?
All yours.
Okay, well, I wanted to make a substitute motion regarding Greater Grace Charter Academy. Before I make the motion, I just want to make a statement. And the purpose of me making this motion is because the last board meeting when we met, the board agreed to defer the chartering group to LDOE to come up with some kind of solution regarding some of their issues within their application. Now, to my understanding, the board has agreed to give them $15,000 to allow their leadership team and their staff to go through a blended learning training model for the upcoming year. So I'm going to make a substitute motion to keep them in the deferment status until they complete their trainings with the funding from LDOE instead of us denying them, and allow them an opportunity to come back to the board based on the evaluation of the training that they will undertake with the grant funding that LDOE has already allocated to give to them. So I'm going to ask that we keep them in the deferment status. So that's my substitute motion.
Okay, staff, did you capture that substitute motion?
You just want to defer this item?
Yes,
Until,
I just want to
based
keep,
on all that other
yeah,
information?
just keep it in the deferment status as we agreed in the last board meeting.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion?
Let me, I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
We don't have a second, then that substitute motion fails. Superintendent White, do you want to address the issue?
It's fine.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Ms. Bradford?
This does not preclude them being able to come back.
It does not conclude that, no.
And I think the issue is, and I spoke to Superintendent Wright regarding this, the issue is for me is that I look at a process that is just a fair process, and I think this charter group has really been diligently working with LDOE and the state superintendent. And I think as a board, I mean, we just deferred a group just a few minutes ago that, I mean, have numerous issues. And I think for us to defer this charter is giving them an opportunity. Now, Superintendent White, with the conversation that you and I had, if we defer them, then they have to go through the process all over again. What I'm trying to prevent is that once they go through the proper training, if LDOE has seen fit for them to give them $15,000, they see fit that they're a reasonable charter group that's working really hard to move forward. So I just didn't want them to have to go through the same process all over again, starting from the beginning to the end, but to give them the opportunity and the chance to go through the training, to go through the blended learning model, to make sure their staff is equipped to do what they need to do. Just give them the opportunity and the chance. And here as a board, we just deferred a charter group that don't even want to be in agreement with State Superintendent White for a building location. And I think that's just unfair. I think we should just be fair across the board. And so that's why I'm presenting this.
So why don't we take a step back and just talk about Greater Grace generally and where we are, and then I know we have Senator Brown, Representative Price, I also saw somewhere. Oh, there he is, sorry. Back here, and I appreciate Pastor Robert and others being here as well. We think that this is a good application, and we want to see the school succeed in St. James and serve the kids of St. James and St. John. We think that there are still some gaps. We are asking you today, later in the meeting, to prepare or to approve a $15,000 allocation to the organization to provide training to the school, as Ms. Hill mentions, to the organization, to sustain them over the course of the next year so they can prepare their leader to implement their curriculum. We think that will help them solve some of the gaps. I agree with where Ms. Hill is trying to go, which is that it's, there are administrative elements of the process that you'd rather them not to have to duplicate. Here's the thing. You have policies in your board policies that basically say that if you don't approve a school, in other words, if you don't approve this school according to your own regulations, then they have to go back through the process again. And that is in the regulations, excuse me, it's in the law, so that we can't circumvent the local in perpetuity. In other words, so that they have to go back through the local process again, and we can't just hold somebody out of the local conversation forever. That's why those laws exist. Now, you can obviously debate that, forever. My perspective on Greater Grace, and I've said this to the applicants in part, is that might not be the worst thing. I actually believe that this would be a good application to work with St. John and Superintendent George, and with St. James and Superintendent Luce on. And I actually think that probably all things considered, if I had my ideal, over the course of the next year, we'd get Superintendent George, Superintendent Luce, and the state, and Pastor Aubert, and Senator Brown, and Representative Price together, and we would try to implement a plan that works with the local school systems rather than working around them just through the state. So, that is, I think, the ideal way that this works out. So I totally understand where Ms. Hill is trying to go. I think the law probably doesn't allow for it. The best thing that we can see to do is to give them the funding that provides for the training, to support them over the course of the year, and but we do see gaps in the proposal that still, we think, don't allow us to support the proposal at this time. And I'm happy to talk about that more specifically.
Ms. Beebe.
Superintendent White, if you will, I need some clarity because as it relates to the Type 2 charter in St. James Parish and St. John, evidently because it's a Type 2 charter, was at any point a proposal submitted to the boards of each district, to each school board, I should say, within the respective districts? So there was a rejection of the proposal at that point submitted by this group to the school boards. Mm-hmm. Thus it became, they filed a Type 2 charter to appear before the board to ask for our approval.
Did this come directly to the state, or this went through St. James? This was rejected. This was rejected by St. James.
Okay, and so with that said, and you mentioned in your comment, or you commented, that Superintendent Luce and Superintendent George could possibly work with this group. Well, I'm just trying to understand a rationale for working with the group when they, in turn, if they wanted a charter within their respective districts, they could do a Type 1 or Type 3 or Type 4. So what is the incentive for them to support this group? I'm just trying to have some.
Well, I think the incentive is there's real academic potential to serve kids well. I mean, I really believe that about the applicants. I think that I have reason to believe that if we sat down and actually had that conversation with those school systems, that there is a reason to incorporate this academic program. I think they would at least consider working with us on that. Now, if not, then we'd have all the more reason to say, fine, we can do it at a state level, and we can make it work and take the next year to do it. I'm just suggesting, Dr. Beebe, I think that should be part of the next year. I think the application is a good one. We still think there are some gaps in the preparation and the planning. I regret that what Ms. Hill says is not possible according to the law, which is to just defer for a year, because what the law says is if you do not approve, then it has to go back to the district. And I'm just suggesting that as part of that process, I would like to speak with Dr. Luce and with Mr. George, and would like to explore with them the idea that maybe this shouldn't be a BESE issue, but should be something that the locals embrace.
Okay. Ms. Kira, Ms. Jones?
Just want to follow up on your comments, Superintendent. I'm pleased to hear what your assessment of the application is. That it's moving towards being a positive application and could be a very strong application within the year. Just want to state, given this is in my district, this is a community that is, in my opinion, in desperate need of additional options for our children, and so. Really working diligently. I like the model that you're putting forward, which is one that would bring the superintendents to the table, bring the district to the table in partnership with the state to address whatever current challenges exist. I feel a tremendous amount of urgency around that, given the options that are currently available to many of the children across that part of our state. And so there is an urgency to move on this. And so is your perspective that we could actually make a significant amount of progress within the next year on this?
Yes, I mean, I think we have said to the group we'd like to see them have an approved charter, certainly before a year from now. And I'm happy to walk it through. We have legitimate academic concerns about the application that I think need to be resolved. That's why we're making the grant. That's an allocation later in the document. But those things being resolved, I think it should be approved. And if those things are resolved, then you would have my commitment that we would bring that recommendation to the board at this level. I'm simply stating that as a precursor to that, I think it would be good to have a conversation with Superintendents George and Luce to talk about this, because I just, I know them, I know they're very entrepreneurial, and what Dr. Beebe says is right. St. James, rejected it. Maybe it's a non-starter, but I do think it's at least worth having the conversation, which I've not had, Dr. Beebe, for whatever that's worth.
I think that's a good idea.
I have a question, Superintendent.
Ms. Hill?
Thank you, Chairman Garvey. So do you think that we're in October right now, by the next board meeting, December, that you can have those conversations with those prospective individuals, deferred until December to see if they'll be willing to work with the group and with you as a state superintendent and the local community leaders, and then bring it for us in December? At least we'll know if this district is willing to work with this group. And then we can make a decision from there. I think give them at least the opportunity, and to allow you, Superintendent White, and your staff to speak with those individuals and then come back to us in December to give us a report to see if they're able to work together. Because I would love to see the two work together. I really do. I'd rather see it on a local level than on a state. But let's give that opportunity first, have that discussion, and then come back to us as board members to see what the outcome has been and see if y'all was able to come up with an agreement.
Well, if a local school board wants to charter this, as Dr. Beebe said, they considered it before. I mean, if they want to charter the school, they can charter it at any time.
Right, but the issue is at hand that they went through the process and they denied them.
Right.
So due to your relationships with those individuals and you stepping in and your team having those dialogues with them, maybe you guys can come up with a decision from now until December and say, hey.
Well, I think I have legitimate academic concerns that are going to take longer than a month, whether it's chartered by the St. James Parish School Board or by BESE. I think I've got academic concerns that are going to take longer than a month. I mean, we have principal training issues. I think that's that's our main issue, is that the principals don't have familiarity in terms of experience with the blended model. And there's a real reliance on the K-12 blended curriculum here. And that reliance, we think, really requires a deep level of experience and training that we'd like to see happen over the course of the next year. There are a set of other gaps that we didn't see in the application, some related to the K-12 blended model, and we'd like to see those things fleshed out as well. I think those are going to take longer than a month to get done.
Guys, we need to get this agenda moving. We're going very, very slow, and we have a long way to go yet. Can we move on to speakers on this item, please?
I think that's interesting, because the group that was just before us, we went on and on and on. I just want to make sure everybody have the same opportunity to speak in regards.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get to the speakers.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Senator Troy Brown.
Thank you, BESE members. Mr. Superintendent, Mr. White, I want to thank you for making the statement you made. You pretty much gave a synopsis of where we pretty much are. You see the reality and the fact that this school is very viable. This school is going to be a help in that area. And I want to ask that you all give some consideration to this. I have heard across the street in the Capitol about a lot of horror stories that you all have been hearing throughout the state. And when I walked in, I heard one of those horror stories. And it's for a lot of different reasons. But I want to commend you all for having the diligence to oversee and pay attention to the good, the bad, and the ugly that's going on throughout the whole state. But here at hand, we have an application of a school that could be a very viable school, has a location, has a principal. The principal has experience. The principal does not have what you all are defining as adequate experience with the blended model, and I understand that and I respect that. But before you all consider, because granted, I'm on that side of the podium across the street, so I know when we're ready to move on to the next item on the agenda as well. That means we finish with this, let's get this over with. Well, this is not that kind of item right now. This item is very important to my district, Kara's district, and it's also important to Carolyn, only because, coincidentally, I represent from West Baton Rouge all the way to St. Charles. So I got a number of BESE members up here. But let's consider the students, let's consider the shortcomings that they're having in their area. On that side of the river, the west bank of St. James and St. John Parish, although it is separated by the river, the unfortunate part that you have is when you look at the West Bank versus the East Bank from here all the way to Jefferson Parish, we see inadequacies on the west side. This is an example of those inadequacies that we see where we have shortcomings with our educational models. The parish schools on that side of the river in that area are pretty much all C and D schools, unfortunately, with no other options unless family has the financial and monetary resources to put their kids in other schools in the St. John area or Ascension area. Let's give this application, I'm here to request that you all give this application due consideration. And when I say due consideration, to deny it, I want to, as I say that, let me back up. About 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, I talked to the Department of Education about this same application. And the comment that was told to me was that they are almost there, Senator. They're almost there. And a few weeks later, I learned they got denied, so they were sent to the local level. Well, let's look at the reality of what happens on a local level. And I had this conversation with the governor when a lot of this stuff was being put in place. Politics plays a part in Louisiana, just like it plays a part in every state in this nation. So let's look at the politics. Ms. Aubert, stand up for a moment. That lady's husband ran against me for state rep in 2007 and ran against me for Senate in 2010. I don't have to be here because they were my opponents 2 years ago. You can have a seat. But I'm saying that to make the point that the reality of politics, y'all, we all know it exists. We all going to be, some of us are going to be campaigning with each other next year. I'm here because that school will give what? Options. It will give options to the families. That's it. I don't need their help to win next year, but I will ask for their help. I got to throw that in there. I have to say that. But again, they've been fighting with this application for over 2 years now. They were denied. And when she was denied about a year and a half, 2 years ago, she reached out to me. We talked on the phone in detail. I never met with them back then. But my last statement to her was, let me know if you need my help, because I think that would be a good asset in that area. I didn't hear from her until about a month ago. She's been working handily for a long term with State Representative Price, who's been in dialogue with you, Mr. Superintendent. But when we look at this, it would be a shame for this board to say, denied. They go back to the local level, and it's not a guarantee. That's why Carolyn made the point that could we consider deferring it until December so we can have some dialogue with these guys. I represent both of those parishes. I could talk to those superintendents collectively. But if you deny today, you're putting them right back to home plate. So if it gets denied on the local level, they're back here again, and then it's going to be a huge setback because a lot of the professionals that they have commitments from who have been holding on and working with them and saying, I'm going to be your principal, I'll work with you as your administrator and the various positions. We have to be realistic and understand that people can't just hold on and hold on and hold on forever. The light, gas, and water still has to be paid. And some of these people have left jobs to be able to start in a provisional level with this company. So I want to ask, as I close it, I want to ask that you all give due consideration to, yes, as the BESE member Carolyn Hill asks, that we defer it so that the dialogue can happen on a local level. And if that doesn't happen as we're expecting it to happen, then we could come back and reconsider the position of the board. Thank you all very much.
Okay, next speaker, Lee Barrios.
Lee Barrios, retired teacher, St. Tammany. I guess this is an historic moment. This is twice in one meeting that I've actually agreed with the department recommendation. But I support your recommendation not to accept this charter. Superintendent White, I'm actually talking in your favor if you want to hear this for a change. For several reasons. First of all, because the district denied it. Secondly, because the Charter Management Group, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, is the K-12 for-profit management group, which has issues that I'll discuss in a minute, and also the blended learning model, which at best needs to be applied in by experienced people. I'm not a fan of the blended learning model, but also the evidence as to how this school would identify whether or not its mission had been accomplished is, and I know this is accepted by the state, based on a standardized test score, when it needs to be a well thought out and applied system of teacher reflection and analysis of a variety of performance measures that correlate with specific needs of the student population and a plan for addressing those needs. As for K-12, a PolitiFact article noted that K-12's poor performance in Tennessee. The New York Times investigated K-12 and concluded the company squeezes profits from public school funding by raising enrollment and increasing the teacher workload and lowering standards. The Washington Post raised similar issues. A study of Western Michigan University and National Ed Policy Center found only a third of K-12 schools achieve. Here's a concept, Ms. Jones, for improving the opportunities at St. John, which I believe is the parish that initiated the lawsuit against the Department of Ed for the funding mechanism, MFP. How about fully funding our traditional public schools and giving them the support that charters have to improve their opportunities? Thank you.
Okay, Representative Ed Price. And can we have Cleveland Hill come down too, please? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And I won't be very long. I think Senator Brown pretty much gave all the synopsis that need to be. But I do say that I've been working with this group for about a year or two now, and that they are very, very dedicated to the children of that district. And that's why I'm here in support of an alternative education option. And I've also agreed to, if we get some deferment here, to sit down and meet with the superintendent, Dr. Luce and Superintendent George, and see if we can't get something at the local level. I just feel that it is a little cumbersome when you have to start the process all over again when you're so close at it. And I think with the fact that the Superintendent White is suggesting that they receive some funding to do some further educational training, that it means that they are very close at it. And I understand his concern. I also understand the law, being that I helped pass some of them, I guess. But at the same time, I think that if we can get some dialogue going at the local level and get some agreement made, and that's why I asked for a deferment at this time, so that we can get this dialogue going, that they can get an understanding of what's going to happen and what can happen, and then we can move forward. So I come in support of that motion that BESE member Hill made, because I think it's a very good motion that we can get some dialogue going at the local level and have an understanding. I do think they probably would come on board. We just don't know at this time. So I'd ask that you support that motion to defer. Thank you.
I'd like to make a substitute motion.
Okay, Mr. Romer.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to defer this until tomorrow. I have some questions that I want to have answered. That can't be answered at this moment.
Ms. Hill, would you like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
I thought maybe so. Okay.
May
Ms.
I?
Beebe?
You know, we heard the word politics used quite frequently today, and I understand you want to defer until tomorrow, but the reality is I would have to ask this group, why haven't the discussions taken place prior to today? I'm sure you know the status, or you knew your status, and again, I have to say that the board, the local districts rejected this application, or this proposal, so I don't know what's going to change by tomorrow. I think, again, we're playing the politics, and when we move forward with our charter approvals, I think there should be some consistency. It just depends on the players at the table that we, we'll change our positions, like in a second. Sure. I saw you leave the room, gentlemen.
Am I respond, if I may?
Yes, sir, Mr. Romer.
Look, I have legitimate both pros and cons to this particular application. There's a great need for some innovation in this part of the state. There are some strong points to the application. There are also some weaknesses. There's also a legal question of, can you continue to defer an item forever without it going back to the locals? And I think we run into an issue there. And so I'm not satisfied yet. I know exactly what all our options are. And I hope between now and tomorrow to understand them more clearly. I'm not saying that tomorrow my motion will be to approve. I'm not saying that my motion tomorrow will be to deny. I'd like the opportunity to find out some questions, some answers to some questions that I have regarding our own process and the idea of deferring for a shorter period of time or a longer period of time. At some point, we do run afoul of our own laws in this state, and I want to make sure we are clear on that. I think I can get that item cleared up by tomorrow and make a more appropriate judgment at that time. That's all.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator, Ms. Moranti?
I'm really in agreement with Dr. Beebe. I think that if we get into circumventing the law, that we really are not in a good position. And I can't imagine between today and tomorrow significant information coming back. I would like to stay with the superintendent's original recommendation.
Mr. Lee?
I think the superintendent has been very involved, has researched, has made a recommendation. I hadn't heard anything here that would say to me why we need to defer. The only thing I've heard is Mr. Romer saying he'd like a better understanding of what the law says. Well, I assume that's already been researched.
Superintendent?
If I may clear something up.
Mr. Romer.
Look, we're trying to balance here what is a tremendous need, okay, and children that need service with an application that's not quite yet where we want it to be, and that's something we should consider carefully. And the decisions we make right now will have an impact. Now, I will say this to the representatives of this group. There is a reason the charter schools in this state have traditionally outperformed the charters around the country. And that's because we do hold them to a very high standard. I want you to understand and appreciate that. And the blended model in particular is a complicated model, is one that holds great opportunity, but it's one that's not easily managed. I know my daughter is in a blended model, and it's a challenge. I want you to know it is a challenge to do properly. It could be great. So I'm trying to balance what is a clear need in a portion of our state and a clear issue of timeliness. You know, at some point you do have to take a chance that if children aren't being properly served, when do you take a chance that's perhaps slightly beyond your comfort zone? And that's what you're asking us to do, quite frankly. Because I agree with all the points that the superintendent made, and I agree with this application. There's some weaknesses here that need to be addressed. And so the question is, what is the timing of getting those addressed and balancing that with also making sure we're not circumventing the law, not setting a precedent that becomes a habit. So I'm saying this, and I know some people have said I'm playing a political card. I'm not playing a political card at all. Okay? I'm playing a card trying to figure out what's the best interest of that community next year and how do we get it done. And can we get it done with this application? I don't know if we can or not. So I want you to hear loud and clear. The reason charters in this state, for the most part, outperform charters elsewhere is we hold our applicants to very high standards. Okay? And I'm going to do the same here. But I do recognize the need in this community. I'm very sensitive to that. We do need to provide options in this part of the community. And I'm hopeful that, in fact, we can have conversations with multiple superintendents in that area and say, let's find a fit for this. That's what I'm hopeful for. But I've got to have some more conversations between now and tomorrow, quite frankly. And I would ask this board to allow 24 hours for me and others to have those conversations and bring that information back to you. I'm not telling you what the recommendation will be tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Superintendent?
Just to sort through what it is we're talking about here, just so we're all clear. The local had originally not chartered the school. Now remember, that local can charter the school anytime it wants. They could bring it back tomorrow and charter the school. I think we probably all agree, and I don't want to, I'm not speaking for you, Representative, but you voiced a sentiment that was somewhat in this direction, that if the local said, let's create our own plan, working with the state, that would be a positive outcome. We said we were going to, our proposal was to reject the charter. We've all agreed that it probably would be a good thing for us to engage in a dialogue with the local, however. So the question really is, what's the relationship between the state rejecting the charter and this dialogue with the local happening? And as I've heard the discussion evolve, I guess I don't really know which is more helpful. Is it helpful today to have a rejection and then engage in the dialogue, or is it helpful to defer and then have the local dialogue? I will one way or the other, I think I get the general sense that people think there should be a dialogue with the local. We will do that. I don't know whether it is most helpful today to reject or to defer. Perhaps there is more time needed to determine what the right course of action on that is.
Superintendent, are you saying that tomorrow you will have a better answer or a better feeling for which would be better?
Well, here's what I envision. I would imagine that what this will mean is that somebody, myself will be involved, will go and sit down with Superintendent George, Superintendent Luce, and perhaps Superintendent Peugeot, and we will be having a conversation about this school, which would be placed, or a school, which would be placed on the West Bank in the river parishes. And, I don't know whether it is better to have rejected it at the state level to have that discussion, or whether it is better to have deferred it at the state level to have that discussion. I don't know. And I think, yes, I think probably a little bit more dialogue would be helpful. For what it's worth, today is a committee recommendation. Tomorrow, of course, it can be brought back up as well.
Yes. Ms. Beebe.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. Again, didn't we hear this item in August? We're in October. Okay. I know Superintendent Luce. I know Superintendent George. Both are innovative. They're exceptional leaders. My question to you, Mr. White, what is the letter grade in St. James Parish?
I don't know it. I believe
I want to say a B, possibly an A.
I believe it's a B.
Okay. B is not failing. I rest my case.
Okay. Yes, Senator, would you like to respond to some of the...
I want to start off by adding a conjunction to what she just said. The
Yes,
schools
sir.
on the west side are failing.
Absolutely.
On the east side, they are passing.
Thank
So in the river parishes, again, from a practical matter, we live there. We've born and raised there. You don't live on the west side and go to school on the east side, even though that is an option. For the most part, if y'all look at the numbers in Ascension, St. James, St. John, you would see that that's pretty much doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. But I want to go back to point out the fact that we are only asking for a deferment in order to not have to go back to home plate and start all over again, which would not happen. Am I correct when I say 2016? If that were to happen. So here we would be adding another year to this process. Many of the state departments, and I'm talking collectively right now, many of the state departments that approve licenses for providers, be it doctors, hospitals, nursing homes, healthcare providers, home and community-based providers, chemists who work for the Department of Environmental Quality, various providers. When you get licensed, my understanding and appreciation is that you get a full licensure, or you can get denied, but you can also get a provisional license. And what is a provisional license? A provisional license says you're almost there, but you're not there. But we're not going to deny you and make you start all over again. We're going to let you start, but in a very small, in a minute way. But this is what we need. And when I look at the paperwork of where the gaps are, there's only 4 issues that are pointed out. Should we put them all the way back to 2016 just because of 4 issues that they are already working with the Department of Education with and are already pretty much there as of today? Should we push them back a whole nother year knowing that we have that reality? That's the purpose of the provisional license with a lot of state departments, to allow you to get in, start your work and put your work in progress, but attend to the issues where you have those gaps and fill those gaps. We wait till 2016, I can assure you, the gaps are probably going to be wider. Because why? Because our work evolves. Our work evolves. Just as though when they first applied and were denied, they went to the local level. They were denied. When they came back to the state level, there were additional requirements versus what they were required initially. So again, our work evolves. So that gap, if we wait till 2016, it's going to widen again. So when do we ever come together and say, let's be reasonable and say, okay, this is where we are. You want full licensure? Complete A, B, C, D, and come back and see us. That's the only reason we're asking for denial. We're not asking for denial because of politics. I can sit here and tell you, Chaz, Kira, Carolyn, and Ms. Beebe, you as well. We all share my Senate district. I haven't reached out to none of you all, except for Carolyn, and I sent a message to Kira. I haven't talked to her since we ran for office. I'm only here because we're trying to be fair. That's it, and I'm asking you all to consider doing the same thing.
Okay, Ms. Bradford?
With all due respect, I do appreciate your opinion. I wish we had that system in place, but we do not have that system before us. And probably our mistake as a board is that when this came to us, I think in the June meeting, maybe August, I know it was there, but I think we've seen it once before. There were issues. And what we should have done probably was to have said no at that meeting. Then that would have made everybody on point to really get active and not have drawn it out. But instead, we deferred because we wanted to give the opportunity. We feel the need. We want it to be successful. But what we don't want is to recreate a system of failing charter schools. And so we do have our requirements in place. We have put forth a lot of effort. I believe you would attest that we've tried to work very hard together to come to resolution on this. But for whatever reason, we find ourselves here today with still some issues that have not been resolved. Mr. Gale and I have a school in our district that was in exactly the same position that is waiting a year.
It was open already.
Yeah, they were already up and running.
There's kids there.
And there are kids there, and we have still delayed for them. So it is an issue that we're going to continue to have to work for and to work on. I don't know where we are legally, if we have provisional, if we have that within our power to do. But certainly what I want you to know, and I think I've expressed this to the personnel, that we do believe in this concept. But we also believe that we have to start with the children's best interest and the parents and the communities so that we will be successful at the get-go.
Okay, Ms. Smith?
Thank you. So, as I understand it, basically the law says we either have to reject it or approve it. Is that correct?
That's the way I understand.
Well, you can defer it. The law doesn't say you ever have to reject it. It says if you don't approve it.
Deny. Maybe I'm using the wrong word.
No, it says if you don't approve it, meaning if you do anything other than approve it, if you take no action on it, it goes back to the local.
Even if they've never, in a different situation where the last group that we were talking about with the milestone had the MOU, this is a different situation.
Right.
So it's my understanding that if they don't have a license or if they don't have a contract, we've got to either deny or reject. And so what I was wondering is if what President Romer is saying is we defer until tomorrow, but tomorrow we got to either up or down.
Well, you've got two options, I think. I think you can either deny it or you can defer it. Now, you should have the confidence to know that I'm going to go talk to the superintendents, I hope with the elected leadership in the region and with the board president from the application. That's going to happen one way or the other. And I think the question is, what's more helpful in that conversation? Is it you rejecting this application now or you deferring it? Because the thing is, I don't think these substantive gaps, and I say this with great respect, are going to be solved within a month. I think probably that opinion is shared. I don't think we're going to do all this principal training and so on within a month's time. So if we agree on that, then the real question is it most helpful to the discussion with the locals for us to reject the application now or to defer the application now? I don't know what the answer to that question is. I think got to take the mood of the board on that.
Let me, if I may, Mr. Garvin. I'm sorry.
We have some more. Ms. Bothy?
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Moranti was next.
I am looking for a legal loophole. Does deferring the decision mean that we have to defer the charter? And if we're not going to circumvent the process, is there, under the law, an abbreviated format so that we don't have to go through this whole process again? I don't know. I'm just looking.
There is not an abbreviated format if a school does not already exist. If a school already exists and they're coming back for a second application, there's a fast track. But if they don't have the school already up and running, there's no fast track.
Mr. Romer.
You know, I can always pull this off the agenda tomorrow if people don't feel comfortable with what my motion was. So I don't want anybody, whether we defer during this committee or approve during this committee or deny during this committee, we do have a chance to revisit it tomorrow. So I want everybody to recognize that. I certainly recognize that. And I'm going to say again, look, the application, we do take this process very seriously. And we have not wavered many times at all from the recommendation of either the third party or the superintendent. Okay, I want you to know that. I mean, I can't actually think of an occasion that we did. And if we did, it's been very few times. So I think, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to best get this school to the point where it can be successful and do it as quickly as we can. And we're in a little bit of a time box here. We do believe there's weaknesses, and I think that'd be unanimous on this board if you asked, do you think there's some weaknesses in this application? I think it would be unanimous there's some weaknesses in this application. I'm trying to figure out how do we get all the responsible parties to the table, how do we provide the training as soon as possible, and I don't know that clearly in my mind right now. So I just want to say that as I don't want you to take my actions as Chaz is ready to vote yes and let's go open this tomorrow. You know, I say yes to the effort and I say yes to the need, but I want to recognize and I want every board member to recognize there's some things we got to work on. Now, I think the question that maybe they don't support my deferral till tomorrow. I still have the opportunity tomorrow to try something different, but there are weaknesses here that we do have to address. I want you to understand that.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Jones?
I want to say a couple of things. One is I appreciate and have appreciated the consistency across our board historically, certainly since I've been on this board, in terms of the way that we've authorized and the way that we've held a very high, consistent standard for charter approval. And in my 14-year career in education, what I've realized is that's critical. It's critical for kids. The decision we make today will actually impact thousands of children's lives, as you know all too well, families, et cetera. And it is critical that we continue to hold an exceptionally high standard. I think, Mr. Romer, you were saying the exact same thing. When we look at our track record for approvals in comparison to almost any other state, I think the reason why we've seen the progress we've seen in our state is because we've held an unrelenting bar, and it's critical that we do that. I think to Mr. Romer's point, and I think Superintendent was saying this earlier, I think it's important for us to also be grounded in what the actual opportunities are for the children living in that community, in these communities, because it actually impacts the opportunities that our kids have there. And there are actually very few. And I know that because I've spent time there. And I know how hard this group has worked. And I know that you've been committed. So I appreciate your dedication and your commitment. You know, whether the will of the board is to deny or defer, what I can say is I encourage you to continue the work that you're doing because you are so close, right? And at the same time, while I think the standard has to remain consistent, for the sake of our kids and families and everything that we actually share in common in terms of what we want for what's possible for our kids, it's also critical that the opportunity to actually get the superintendents to the table, figure out what the plan would be to ensure that you all have the resources you need to be prepared to actually meet on all, not just with the exception of those 4, to meet every single criteria, which I know is possible. I'm hoping that we get to the point today where that's ultimately the direction that we're moving towards. And I'm not necessarily sure that deferment actually gets us any closer to that necessarily. I think whether it's a denial or a deferment, the fact is, like, there's still work that has to be done for us to get to that level. However, I know I'm personally committed to being at the table. The fact is, like, it's absolutely important that the work continues because you all are so very close. And I know that if you get there, I know what that's going to mean for children who frankly do not have nearly as many opportunities as they should have.
Ms. Hill.
Since I put the motion, I'd just like to close it. Usually Mr. Roma and I are never on the same page on anything, but with this issue here is, and I just want everyone to understand, I have voted in ways that I felt that was the right thing to do and on principle. And so I've always made it clear that I'm not against traditional public schools, charter, vouchers. I'm for what's right for our children, regardless of what entity they chooses. And so when I look at the process, do I think the process in regards to the charter process, is there some issues there? Yes, there are issues. But the reason why I'm standing along with this charter is not because of Senator Brown, Representative Price, or any other elected official. It's the right thing to do. This is your 3rd time coming to BESE. And each time you have come to BESE, they denied your application. You're almost there. You're almost there. You have to go back to the local, and they deny you. And then you have to come back again. So for me, I looked at it, what can be fair? They offered you guys the funding, which they feel that you're there. So why not give you the opportunity to defer you guys? Now, I like the statement that Superintendent White said. I prefer it to be on a local district, to be honest, on a local level, because you can obtain those resources and support from the local district. But if the district is not willing to work, then what else does an individual, what can they do for options? So I don't know how we're going to move forward on this one. I'm still going to stand my ground as a deferment, even if it's to tomorrow. I still have some questions legally that I haven't had opportunity to speak with some of the legal counsel regarding some of the loopholes in the law, which I will meet with them after this meeting to ask more questions, Superintendent White. But I thank you for willing to go to the local school districts to work with the state superintendents. So I don't know how we're going to move forward, but if we would defer to tomorrow or to December, I just think that we need to just give them the opportunity and the chance.
Superintendent White?
Members, here's how I would suggest to you that you proceed, and take this for what it is. I'll do whatever you think best. First, you have a substitute motion in front of you that's Mr. Romer's that gives you just time. That would help probably to sort things out a little bit. But if you feel, as Mr. Lee or Dr. Moranti or Dr. Beebe said, that the facts are on the floor, facts are on the table, I'm fine to deal with that too. So you've got first that to consider. Second, you've got Ms. Hill's question of the deferment. I'm going to go meet with hopefully our legislators who are here today, as well as Pastor Aubert, as well as Ms. Orange-Jones, as well as the school superintendents. I'm going to do that no matter what you decide on whether it's my recommendation to, I don't like the word, but reject, or Ms. Hill's to defer. So take that for what it is. Here's the only thing to know. If you take Ms. Hill's recommendation to defer, it's coming back in December, and we're going to have this discussion again. So one option you might do is, if you take my recommendation to reject, then require me to report back on the local discussion also. So you could also pass a motion saying you're requiring me to report back on the local discussion. And Representative and Senator and Pastor, I hope you take that to be reflective of, in combination with the grant, my attempt to say, I don't think we're going to get there within a month to get all the academic issues resolved. The grant, I think, will get us there. my hope is that the discussion with the superintendents will get us a strong local plan. If not, then what you got is my commitment to work on a state application with the grant money for next year moving forward. Meaning, so for the board members, what that would mean is you can take Mr. Romer's as you see fit. If you don't, then it would come back to Ms. Hill. If you don't take up her motion, then it would come back to the original motion, which I believe was to the recommendation, which was to reject. But you could know that I am fine with a motion that requires me to come back and report on the conversations that I would have with the local.
For housekeeping purposes, I don't think Ms. Hill has a motion on.
She doesn't?
She doesn't.
She doesn't. Okay,
No,
my
that-
apologies.
that did
My
not
apologies. Okay.
Get through.
That did not get a second. That's right. Okay, my apologies.
I have a question for the representative and senator. Do you think one of the things you were trying to do with a deferral was to send a message to the locals that they need to take this process seriously? What the superintendent is describing, which would be BESE directing him to go meet with the locals with you guys, would put, I think, some pressure on the locals and send some message to the locals that we are expecting them to take this seriously. Do you agree that it would send that message?
I agree, but that does not give us a guarantee, and I think that along with what you're saying now, the deferment also, the goal of the deferment would be that if worst case scenario they had to come back to the state, they wouldn't have to go back to square one and start all over again.
Unfortunately,
if that is allowed in the law.
I don't think it is, and I totally take the point. I just think that's the box we're in. The law, because this is the problem. I actually happen to agree that there are all these administrative elements that you probably would just say, look, they've written it. Do they really have to write it all over again? I totally understand that. Unfortunately, I think the law is pretty stark on this issue. It's pretty clear you have to go through the process again.
Mr. White, if I can I ask a question? And again, I'm kind of new, even though I'm not new to a lot of these, but I'm new because I'm hearing a lot of the current things that you all are dealing with. Now, can I ask this question of the board? Do you all have any in your history where you all have approved applications, although it is not provisional? From a practical matter, it is provisional because you knew from hearing the application that there were a lot of gaps in the application.
No.
Have y'all?
No.
There's no history of that?
No.
No.
However, Senator, I would strongly suggest and ask, that's a great thought.
Yeah.
I like that, and I think that most of us would agree. Generally, going back through the process when you're reapplying is a positive because you do have things that change during that year of work or however long it is.
Right.
But I think giving us some flexibility legally might be a very good idea, and the provisional idea
And
was very appealing to me.
Yeah, we'll look at that. I've already got that in mind because and I'm just so you all know, I'm a healthcare provider in my private practice, and although it's never happened to me, I've heard of many agencies out there that have had horror stories, but DHH don't come back and tell them you're out of business. That's not where our goal is. Our goal is to provide services and resources to people collectively and holistically in the state. So even in monitoring and licensing, we sometimes have to slap somebody on the wrist and say, get that right. We're going to give you 60 days. Or we'll give you a provisional license and give you 60 days to fill that gap. That happens. That happens. I see you all shaking your head saying, no, that happens. I'm in the business. Now, that's DHH. That's not you all. But that does not mean that it cannot happen. Because we are human, and from what I'm hearing that unless you have it 100% right, you're not coming in. And I'm also hearing from some of the constituents and people that is not a reality. That you all have done it. I have some colleagues of mine that I have had conversations with, and I'm not going to bring it up. But again, I will say it does happen. Politics does play a part.
Superintendent White, I just have one question, and then we can just move on. Do you think if we keep it in a deferment, when you guys go to the local school district, that it would send a message to them okay, we have them in a deferment status. We would prefer that you guys work with them locally, but if you don't, they still have the opportunity, instead of just denying them. Because I think having them in a deferment status when you go to the local school district give you the opportunity to have that open dialogue, and send a message that, you know, we're serious and we're allowing you guys, we want you guys to have the opportunity to charter this group, but if you don't, then they can always come back to us. I mean, I'm just trying to see what would be.
The only issue is that I don't think we can rectify these issues within a month. And I just need to be candid with you. I know I've said that all along. I just don't think we can. I think we can rectify them in 6 months. But to get all the training and to feel like it has integrity to come back to you and recommend. So in other words, at some point, you're going to have to either say, you know, no more, or just, so, you know, that's the issue.
Ms. Smith?
Thank you. And to the folks at the table, y'all are doing a good job. I almost thought I was back in the legislature there for a while.
Thank you.
So, what I'm hearing from the superintendent is that if there's a denial today, that doesn't mean that it's over. It means that, if I'm understanding this correctly, you may have as good a chance as ever of getting this through, because you're now going to have a board that's going to listen and take notice. If this is rejected, which to me, the way I see it, it's got to either be accepted or rejected. But you're still going to have to go back and talk to the local board no matter what we do. If we defer, there's still going to have to be some agreement, am I understanding this correctly, to move this forward, to ever be able for it to be accepted. Is that sort of the reason why you would even go and meet with the local board? Because so far that hasn't transpired.
Well, I think it'd be a good thing if it weren't opposing, if the Ascension and St. James and St. John Parish School Boards viewed this as a positive for their communities. And you know, let's be candid, they've got struggles in some of these towns along the West Bank. So I think that'd be a positive, and I think that's why we'd engage in the conversation.
So a motion, if your motion stays to reject, but you're going to go meet with them, it's still going to be an opportunity to, at some point. So we're not going to fix this by tomorrow anyway. So your motion. So if I'm understanding, you're going to keep your motion intact.
My recommendation remains.
I'm sorry, your
yes, my recommendation
yes.
remains intact. Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we still have some more speakers, unless the speakers think that we have covered this enough. Senator?
Is it possible, and I think I heard you say that the law calls for you all to only approve or reject?
The law doesn't call for either. It just says if you do, and this is what makes it so tricky. It just says if you don't approve, then the process must start all over again.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is no provision.
I'm sorry.
Right.
There's no provision.
Right.
Well, I've never heard.
No, there's no provision.
No such.
It says if BESE does not, and the reason is what the law is trying to prevent is BESE saying, okay, we're just going to extend this for 5 years.
Can you approve it with some addendums?
We can, but then you get into issues. For example, this board will be a new board in a year. And I think that kind of gets into issues of governance and precedent that I think is, you know, frankly, unprecedented.
Right.
And what I would counsel the board to do is just to say, we're making a grant. We want to work with you, and I of course we've worked on so many issues together, and I hope you take as earnest that we really want to get this across the finish line. I would prefer to do it in concert with Lonnie and Patrice and Kevin, if possible. I would like to go do this discussion with them. If that doesn't work, I am prepared to bring this back. If we can make it strong, which I think we can, support it here with this board and get it right, because we do need good schools on the West Bank in the river parishes. It's just going to take a little while.
Can I ask this, Mr. Superintendent? I'm in agreement with what you're saying. I do think that if we go back to the local superintendents and they see that there is a deferred status on the state level, it will give them the perception that they may want to approve it there so they can have a little bit more control. And we'll have some conversation with them as well to make them understand. I think one of the biggest perceptions with the local school, and this is statewide, they think that by approving charter schools, they lose all control, when in all actuality, it's better for them to approve than you all to approve. Some of the parishes just don't know that. I think if we have a deferment status, at least they would say, we could have some dialogue and say, guys, look, we need you all for these reasons. If not, this is what may happen. I think that would give us a little, I guess it'll give us a...
My only hesitance is, and I totally understand, I mean, I know those folks well, as you do, I know. My only concern is, I think they probably know that where we are in reality, you know, on this. And I just don't want to, this would be the fourth meeting now that this board would go through this same discussion. And I kind of feel like the board knows that we don't earnestly think that we're going to get this done in December. You know, this is more like a March or April solution.
I don't think it would be. It wouldn't be to rehear anything. It would be just to have it in deferment status in order to have the dialogue, the necessary dialogue. The reality of it is, if it come back to you all in December, it's getting voted down.
So, Superintendent, is your motion to defer until March or April?
That's a good motion.
My motion is to, as I said, someday I'll be able to make motions. My recommendation to the board is that we not approve the charter. However, as I said, I would, to demonstrate to the legislature and to Pastor Aubert and to the community our commitment to this, I would urge you to add to your motion by requiring me to report back to you on conversations with the local parishes regarding the development of a local application. Secondly, know that you will be later approving or considering, I should say, a grant to the organization to develop and support the process going forward.
Okay, we have some speakers still. My suggestion to them is that we have really thoroughly discussed this, and any more speakers may confuse the issue more. But if you disagree with me when I call your name, come on down. If you do agree, then please wave. Cleveland Hill. Okay, Claude Aubert. Claudette, I'm sorry.
A couple of things that I do want to say. In the application, I went back to where the key components, we have identified the population of 6 schools. You mentioned that St. James having a B, but still the schools that are having a D have consistently placed, had a B for 4 years. So, that is concerning to me. These kids, and it's only mounting up. You expect them to have another year or 2 years at a D-level school. We had discussion. Matter of fact, I was with Dr. Luce on Friday. He has a quarterly ministers meeting, and the ministers.
Thank you. And the ministers are even asking him about this thing too, because he admitted it's a power struggle. Wherever it is, it's a power struggle. That is what has this amounted to. All right. I don't know this young lady's name, but she mentioned that K-12 is or CMOs. We're only using K-12's curriculum. We're also using the iReady curriculum. There are many features from this program that you don't realize that we're using. It's not just K-12, only part of it. They're not our CMO. We have the blended, we have on-site teachers, we have Nicholls State University, we also have these memorandum of understandings. A lot of the things that were reported in this document was inaccurate. Okay? Survey stuff that she mentioned was not true. She gave information, and I mentioned it to some people already in the past. If you go through this document, it was not written correctly. I can point these things out, but I know I don't have the time. Obvious things as far as our principal will not be there next year. So that's another issue that I have to deal with. The training is only for 6 weeks that they're talking about. And this is to go through the actual work with K-12 as far as, the testing procedures and stuff like that. We've already begun most of this training already. We did it during the summer. We did some programs there. But now this is actually going to be working only for 6 weeks. So the grant that you're talking about, that'll be completed by December. Okay, so we went through all of these aspects of it. As far as the typical date, we've given them the schedule. So now that's been cleared up. Everything that has been asked to do, we've done it. We even have the incubation, the information there, and I can give each one of you a copy of it. I know, this was not discussed, but they're not our CMO. We have identified the population in St. John's on low-performing schools. I even asked them, give us the schools, give us the students. So that's a point. We identified the principal, our mission statement, these are little, and identified that's a school day. These were the things that was concerning them, and we've done that. And we're willing to work, and I thank you for letting me work with David. These are the issues, and I'm willing to talk to Dr. Luce. We've already implemented that. I started on Friday, and one of the pastors in the area mentioned to him, he said, how long can we go with this? He said, it's about the children. We have to get the power behind this away. And I do know Tangipahoa Parish 2 years ago did not meet any of the standards, and they were approved. I was here. I sat in the audience. So that is a documented case. And that's the time when they said I was almost there. I just needed 2 more. And so everything that I've gone through that was required of me, I've done it. And we also have all the documentation if you need that. We're planning to do a site visit on October 21st. We're already going to schools. We're already looking at the successes of these schools. We're already looking at places where K-12 work. But it won't only be just K-12. Everybody keeps that in mind. It's not just K-12. For what it's worth, at least I had a chance to mention it. I know it has been done before because I sat right in here and saw it.
Okay. Stephen
Thank you.
Aubert? Stephanie Aubert, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm Stephanie Aubert. I am the named principal of Greater Grace Charter Academy. And I sat here and I listened to the superintendent mention that there are gaps in the application. One of them being leadership. The application recommendations, if you would read, says the 2 of us have no leadership experience. That's how it was stated. I have 40 years of leadership experience. And it says that I have no blended learning experience. Blended learning can have a number of definitions. I have not specifically worked with K-12, but I have worked with blended learning. As a matter of fact, when I retired from the St. John the Baptist Parish School System 14 years ago, I worked with CTB McGraw-Hill as one of their literacy coaches. I visited depressed areas of schools that were not functioning. Their achievement scores were low, and I trained them in a blended learning program. That blended learning program was called Breakthrough Literacy. And if you research, you'll see that there are a number of blended learning programs. And it can be modified, adjusted. We were always trained as leaders, as educators, to make sure that whatever program you use, you have to fit it to your population. And so that's what I learned to do, and that's what I helped these other districts that I worked with McGraw-Hill to do. And this was not only in Louisiana, this was nationally, that I trained teachers in blended learning. So I don't know why it was placed in the response that I had no blended learning experience, but that was not accurate. It is true that I had no experience with K-12, and I have since October learned an awful lot about K-12, which is now called field education because they changed their name. And I see a lot of merit in that program based on what I know and based on the experience that I've had working with school systems, with teachers, training teachers, along with the responses to the questions that we gave at the interview. I also submitted my resume. And, for them to say I had no leadership experience after looking at my resume, I don't understand that. So I just wanted to make sure that I explained to you that a lot of the gaps that was articulated here as being such, I don't see them as being gaps. I'm a person that loves to learn. I am 63 years old and I'm still learning. And there are some things that I've learned in this past year that I didn't know throughout my career, and I have found to be very beneficial, and those things I will be using in the school when we open our charter school, because I know that we focus on academics. However, we have to understand that the children that we serve, we also have to look at cultural relevance. And that is very, very important. As a matter of fact, it's more important, because if they are not prepared emotionally and socially to accept what we're providing for them, then they're not going to learn. So we have to make sure that we create that culture in our school to prepare them to learn. And if we do that, then they will automatically achieve. And that's my philosophy. Thank you.
Okay, we have Nina Costley and Sean Bruce. Come down, please.
Yes, Lena Costley. Should I say good morning or good afternoon? We've been here a while. But I am a representative for the parents and the community. And I am on the board for Greater Grace. I have been coming here 3 years, and I've been listening and hearing. Okay, and I commend Ms. Hill for saying be honest and be truthful in whatever was going on. Because the last time we came, it was that we had only a few little things and it was deferring. Okay, each time I come, it's a different thing. And I have been working faithfully, going to all the board meetings and the training for Greater Grace. What about our children? You keep saying this and saying that. The children are waiting, the parents are waiting, the community is waiting. And each time I come or we go to our interview, is why are we not getting approved? We've had packages of applications, papers, going back and forth to the local board and coming back here. Now, I have done my homework in the community, besides dealing with Greater Grace. I know it is a political thing. And I'm addressing this to Mr. White. I think you know about St. James Parish, right? If I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong. You know a lot about St. James Parish. You know a lot about Dr. Luce, right? Am I right or wrong? Just tell me I'm right or wrong. You know him personally. You know him personally.
I know him personally.
Okay, you know that he do not want a chartered school in St. James Parish. Am I right or wrong? And I apologize if I'm wrong.
I have not had the conversation with him. I haven't talked to any of the superintendents about it.
Okay, you have not met with him at all?
Not about this issue, no ma'am.
No, but it has not came up?
No.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Luce do not want a charter school in St. James Parish. As she said, because he feels he's not thinking about the children. He's thinking politically wise, and he's thinking about that the children he's going to lose the children. It's not about him. It is about our children, and I think that they deserve to have a choice. And each one of you all on the board know that. We have faithfully been coming, and each time we correct one thing, we come back as something else. Be faithful, be honest. I don't know how you all can go home and sleep knowing that. I'm being honest with you. These are my opinions, mines, you know. This is hard work, and when you deny it, that means that it's denied. It is completely denied. We can call, we can write, we can do all this here. Nobody's going to hear from us because it's denied. But in order, deferring it would be the better thing. If you want to find out more information, but sending us back to Dr. Luce, knowing that Dr. Luce will not approve it. Because if he had, we wouldn't be here today. We are going backward and forward because he feels we are a threat to him. So I mean, to be honest, just be honest. Our children need this. The parents are fighting for this. Would you have wanted me to bring 150 people that signed surveys, fill out surveys here today? And a lot of them probably would have been, but their jobs are important, that the children need their parents working. Just be fair in doing this. I've listened to different schools get approved for different things. And I can truly say that we have stability with our application. A lot of people have been approved for sample things, just little sample things. You know, we have all the things that's needed. That's what you said when we were Give them the reports back. Just correct the principal. We've corrected the principal. The principal is here, have over 40 years of experience in everything. Now you're finding loopholes, sending us back, knowing that we are not giving up. I am not giving up. I'm fighting for my grandchildren and my children. You say next year there'll be a different board or whatever. What are you telling us? That maybe they might approve us? What? But you have children or a child. Each one of you have a grandchild or whatever. Give our children a choice. They're fighting for a choice. When they asked us to come here, I left a job to come here today, to be here today, under the impression that something's going to be done. You keep telling us we're almost there, okay? But I'm just saying, it's just upsetting. I'm sorry, I don't mean to yell, but be fair with all of us.
So let me just give you my response on behalf of the department, ma'am. There are going to be a lot of hard conversations today.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of telling people no today.
Oh, yes.
The reason this conversation's gone on so long is that my department actually believes in this application. We're actually not saying no, because we believe in everything you just said. However, I also believe you don't build a house until you got the foundation right. And I don't believe the foundation is entirely right. I'm a charter school fan. I believe in charter schools, especially for kids where we're not doing everything we need to do by them. But I also need to insist that the foundation be built sturdy, and I don't think it's there yet. So look, here's what I'm saying. The reason that I need to be honest and say that, but the reason this discussion's gone on so long is because we believe in what you all are doing. I want to see it come back. I want it to be successful. So we can move forward with the discussion. But
one question
yeah.
to ask you. Denying it, you think by denying it, that gives us a chance to come back here, and we have to go all the way back and do another application again?
I think that's the way the policy works, yes.
Well, you know that, and you're telling us to let you deny it. Well, you're telling them to let you deny it.
I think the thing that's making it deny it is the foundation isn't ready. And that's going to be true today. It's going to be true in a month also.
Okay, I believe that Sean Bruce is here for the East Carroll Parish issue, so we'll put him in that pile. That concludes our speakers. Do we have, please no, any more questions from BESE members? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion?
What's the motion on the floor?
The motion is to defer this issue until tomorrow.
I object.
You asking, are we in favor of the motion or against it?
I was asking if there was an objection to the motion, and I heard that there is an objection. Let's have a roll call vote on the motion, please.
Dr. Beebe?
I object to defer.
Dr. Beebe votes no. Ms. Bofi?
I object to deferring.
Ms. Bofi votes no. Ms. Bradford?
I am okay with deferring. I'm not sure if that's a yes or no. But
Yes.
Ms. Bradford votes yes. Mr. Gio?
No.
Mr. Gio votes no. Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Hill votes yes. Mr. Lee?
No.
Mr. Lee votes no. Dr. Moranti?
Object to deferring.
Dr. Moranti votes no. Ms. Orange Jones?
No.
Ms. Orange Jones votes no. Mr. Romer?
Yes.
Mr. Romer votes yes. Ms. Smith?
No.
Ms. Smith votes no. Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey votes yes. Motion fails.
Okay, we go back to the original motion, which is to deny.
Object.
Okay, can we get a roll call vote?
Dr. Beebe?
Yes.
Dr. Beebe votes yes. Ms. Bofi?
Yes.
Ms. Bofi votes yes. Ms. Bradford?
yes.
Ms. Bradford votes yes. Mr. Gio?
Yes.
Mr. Gio votes yes. Ms. Hill?
No.
Ms. Hill votes no. Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lee votes yes. Dr. Moranti?
Yes.
Dr. Moranti votes yes. Ms. Orange Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Orange Jones votes yes. Mr. Romer?
Yes.
Mr. Romer votes yes. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Smith votes yes. Mr. Garvey?
No.
Mr. Garvey votes no. Motion passes.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is on page 14, item 2.4. Consideration of the Type 2 charter application submitted by Grambling High Foundation in Lincoln Parish, and the department recommendation is to deny.
Can we get a motion on the floor? Ms. Beebe? We get a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Bofi? Superintendent, do you have comments?
Yes, and this is a changing item. I believe that in this case, the applicant has agreed to withdraw their application. Members, in the time since we last spoke, you requested that I meet with the parties involved. I want to thank Ms. Bradford. By the way, that's a fantastic little coffee place where we did the meeting. Very nice. And we met with the board of the school, the Lincoln Parish School Board, and the interim president of Grambling University. And I believe have started down the road of what will be an application that will be supported by all parties and will be a quality application. As a result of that, the foundation has withdrawn their application to put it on a longer timeline to work with the Lincoln Parish School Board and with Grambling University to have a longer runway. So we have more time, and thus I believe the recommendation, if I'm correct, Bridget, should be to delete this item. And so, Mr. Chairman,
So you want me to just withdraw, or you can make the?
I would issue a substitute motion that I would suggest that there be a substitute motion to delete this item.
Okay, do we have a second for the superintendent's motion?
He can't make it.
Ms. Bradford?
I move that we delete.
Move that we delete. Second by Ms. Bofi. Okay, do we have any questions from BESE members?
No, the motion
Mr. Lee? Delete the item.
Delete.
Yes, because the application has been withdrawn. Okay. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is on page 18, item 2.5, consideration of type 2 charter applications in response to the 2014 request for applications as recommended by the State Superintendent of Education. The recommendation is to, number 1, approve the department's recommendations, and 2, defer.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Ms. Bofi, we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Jones, do we have comments from the department?
Yes, we do. Members, I'm going to give you some comments that are fairly detailed, so bear with me. Let me say this at the outset. There was a report released maybe 2 weeks ago by the National Alliance for Charter Schools that named Louisiana as having the second highest charter school environment of any state in the country. And it is worth looking at. It's actually the highest of any state, second after Washington, D.C. And it's worth looking at, and really a lot of it comes down to us having made prudent decisions at the statewide level that Ms. Orange-Jones mentioned earlier. And I think that I see every one of these decisions today in light of that, in light of good decision-making about when we open a door for kids, do we know that, do we really have faith that it's going to be a good opportunity? And thus, you're going to see today us making some decisions and recommendations to you that even though the independent reviewer may have felt like a school was a strong application in isolation, our feeling is that while that is the independent reviewer's job, and they did a good job, you can't see a school in isolation. And that therefore there are a couple of instances in which we're going to say to you, yes, the independent reviewer said they thought this would be a good thing. We're going to take a more of a wait-and-see attitude for a couple of reasons, and I want to highlight 3 in specific. So there's going to be a bunch of comments about a bunch of things. I'm happy to take them on a one-off basis, but there are 3 in which the independent reviewer said, we feel positive, and in which I'm suggesting to you, let's take a wait-and-see approach. Okay? 2 of them relate to Charter Schools USA. One is in Monroe, and one is in Alexandria. The independent reviewer in both of those cases gave the application a positive review. I think that that's good. They submitted a good application. The independent reviewer believed the application was a good application. I believe that Charter Schools USA is doing a commendable job. They, however, have grown quickly, and I will feel better about giving you a final recommendation after reviewing their school performance score results, which come out in a week. I do not feel in a position to offer you a recommendation about future schools until I see their current school performance scores and until you are able to see them as well. I believe the independent reviewer, that's not their job. It's not to see that context. That is our jobs. And thus, I'm not making a recommendation on those schools today. Am I not on the right item?
Well, I'm just asking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, you said Charter School USA, that's 2.5. I don't see that.
That's under the Louisiana
entity
Charter
listed.
Foundation.
Louisiana Charter Foundation. I'm sorry.
That is
I'm
the
sorry.
same entity.
Okay,
Yes,
so
yes.
you are
I
addressing-
apologize. Yes,
okay.
yes. I'm sorry. The Louisiana Charter Foundation. Yes. I'm sorry, Mr. Gamble.
Would it be helpful to take these one at a time?
We certainly could if that'd be helpful to you.
Is the motion as a group? I mean, right now the motion.
Right
is
now, the motion is we can split.
The motion is as a group. I have a feeling that there are a couple that are going to be talked about more than others, and I'm trying to highlight those in greater depth. And if other people want to talk about others, I can take those one off. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. So if you wouldn't mind, Dr. Beebe, if I might get through my, is that okay if I get through my comments and then take follow-up comments?
I would just like to see us take them individually.
You would? Okay, we can take them individually. I will. I have a good sense of when momentum is working against me, and I'm all good. I'm all good. That's all right. I'm learning. Yeah. This is a growth area for me. Okay, why don't we take them individually? So why don't we start with the Charter Schools USA?
That would be my
group.
suggestion.
Okay.
Wait,
Okay, are you finished with the comments on CSUSA?
No.
Okay.
No. So we are proposing to defer the recommendation, as I said, for additional schools at this time. And as I said, the rationale for that is that those schools are not. They are backed by a management organization that holds a number of schools in its portfolio, and I would like to wait and see how those schools fare in their school performance scores, which will be released next week. I just think that's appropriate. It's not necessarily the purview of the independent reviewer, but that's what I would propose. I think that's a prudent decision. Again, that's only for the proposals that they made that the independent reviewer gave a thumbs up to. If they gave a thumbs down to it, I think we should not approve it, and we're not bringing it forward for an approval. If they did give it a thumbs up, we're just proposing to defer it, and we'll make a decision once their school performance score comes out. Okay?
At the December meeting?
At the December meeting, yes.
So you need a motion to take it separately to defer?
Do we need a motion to take it separately, or can the chair just split?
Well, right now the motion is to approve the department's recommendation
Right.
as in number 1 and in number 2. So yeah, I think we don't need a motion, but we can take them separately.
Well, let's
But
take
I have objection to one of the recommendations, so I would ask that.
Let me work it this way, if we could. Can I get a motion to defer the Louisiana Charter Foundation?
I move.
Okay. We have a motion, Ms. Beebe, second, Ms. Bradford. Let's have discussion now. Okay. Do we have discussion from BESE members on deferring
Deferring on
the
what?
CS Charter Schools USA, otherwise known as Louisiana Charter Foundation? No questions? Okay. Do we have speakers on this issue? Can we have the first one? That's okay. Okay, Nicole Teal and Arthur Martinez. We wait. Okay. Is Timmy Teeple here? Tim. Oh, okay. What's that?
Two different people altogether, and I think he wants the record to show that.
The record reflects. Blake Cooper. Wave also. Okay.
These I'm not sure of, if they want to speak, what school they want to speak to.
Okay. Deborah Moe, are you looking to address this item?
Debbie Moe, President, Louisiana Association of Educators. I first of all want to say that I applaud Superintendent White and BESE for carefully looking at charters and holding them to high standards. And I'm probably going to be chastised for this. I will plead my inexperience with this board. What I'm going to say doesn't really apply to this particular set of charter schools. But what I'd like to say is that I believe that you as a board have shown today a greater care for our school systems as a whole. And I would plead that you would continue to look at our school systems as a whole. Vast majority of our kids attend our traditional public schools. In your next meeting, you'll be looking at waivers. Some of them increase class sizes because of diverted money to charters. Maybe that's not the only diversion of money, but it's going to be one of the major factors. Our school districts are suffering because of the funding mechanisms that are in play. And even our good school districts are suffering. BESE is constitutionally charged with the care of education in Louisiana for all children. Our public schools are a part of that charge. I don't wish to offend anyone, and perhaps you may find my analogy a little disturbing, but this is the way it seems to me. You have three children, so to speak. You have charters, you have vouchers, and you have traditional public schools. None of us as parents would abuse, neglect, or starve one of our own children. As our constitutionally appointed caretakers for education in Louisiana, I believe that it is your charge to make sure that the needs of all options for education, including traditional public schools, are taken care of and treated equally. I understand that the funding of education in the state is always a challenging concern that is hotly contested by many interests. But I'm here to say that we can no longer treat traditional public school systems as the enemy or abuse them like neglected children. We can no longer take away funding from our public schools, whether as a punishment or as collateral damage, because of the other two systems now seen as favored children. We have to figure out more equitable ways of funding all forms of education in Louisiana. Children in all options deserve the same advantages. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking at the cards, and I've noticed that Representative Rogers Pope is here, but we do not have a card for him. If you would like to speak, we would. Well, okay. Thank you very much. Next speaker, Carl Glass and Lee Barrios, please.
Lee Barrios, retired teacher. Wow, I agree with Superintendent White again on his suggested withdrawal of his recommendation. But I did want to get up and comment as to why. Again, it was denied by the district, and I hope that you all will look into why the district would deny that, other than just stating that, well, they don't want charter schools. But you know, that may be it, and I'm behind him on that. But also, evidently, I was correct in assuming that the 7 charter schools, USA schools that we have now, have not been open long enough to have letter grades, and I think you confirmed that, Superintendent White. And I would have suggested that you did wait and see how they were doing before you open another one. Another thing I'd like you to look at before you do give final consideration, it says in the agenda item posted, and on the first page, the second bullet, the proposed board and school leaders demonstrated strong capacity to launch, oversee, and maintain the proposed education plan. Combined, the proposed leader and the CEO have more than 35 years of experience working as educators who serve minorities and at-risk populations. Every time I hear this combined experience thing, I think, you have 100 people with 100 years experience. What does that mean? So I would hope you would look closely at that. It also said the applicant states that the proposed leader has experience bringing a school with similar population out of failing status. It doesn't have evidence of that or who the leader is or what that experience is. I would hope that you would look at that first. Thank you.
Thank you. Nason Authorment? Pass. Okay, great. Okay. This is all the speakers on this item. Do we have any further questions from BESE members on the motion to defer the Charter Schools USA? Hearing none, do we have any objections to deferring? Hearing none, motion carries. Let's then address the Louisiana Delta Empowerment Group. The recommendation is to approve. Can I get a motion to that effect on the floor, please? Ms. Jones?
Yeah.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Ms. Bofi? Thank you. Superintendent, do you have a comment?
Yes. Members, as I know many of you have, I have been doing a lot of research and thinking about this application too. First of all, I want to thank the folks who were here from Lake Providence and East Carroll Parish. I know people from the school board have come down. Our superintendent is here. I want to thank you, superintendent, for being here. I also know people from the charter school proposal are here as well, and I want to thank them for being here. I think, first of all, the application is very high quality, and many of you have expressed a desire, as with Greater Grace, for us to nurture higher caliber, community-based applications. Many of you have expressed a desire for rural charter school opportunities, and we've tried to nurture that, and Adam Hoff and Lauren Perry and David Shepard have done a really good job doing that, and so I'm thrilled with this application and what they've tried to do. I have some concerns about the structure of how this school will interact with the school system. So I do not have concerns about the quality of this application. It received a thumbs up from the reviewer. I have questions. Let me say it's not really concerns, it's really more questions. If you have spent time in Lake Providence, which I have, you know that it is among the most isolated parts of our state. It is in the corner of our state, which means that it does not really draw from other parishes because it's literally in the corner. And it has there's some stark dividing lines in that parish and around that parish. So I have, when you put a middle school in the middle of the grade continuum, it creates an awkward enrollment pattern that I have just questions about. And so what I have asked our team to do, it's a good application. We should feel good about it. We should feel good about the educators who brought it. I don't love, frankly, a lot of the personal accusations that have been going back and forth over the last week. I think that's really regrettable on all sides. I'd like to get rid of that. I've asked my team to go to Lake Providence. They've committed to doing that in the first week of November. They'll be up there. I've told them to meet with the superintendent. I've told them to meet with the school board. I've told them to walk the schools. I've asked them to walk the community. And I've asked them to understand, how do we create a plan that creates alternatives for kids, but does it in a way that ensures that it's not disruptive to the flow that kids have throughout their continuum of pre-K-12. I hope that makes sense to you. That calls for you to amend your motion, if you support what I'm suggesting, to a deferral to the December meeting. I recognize that this is a somewhat frustrating thing probably for the folks who drove down here on both sides of this issue from Lake Providence. They have my respect and my regrets for that. This has been a very tricky issue for us, as it's a good application, but we just need to work through some of these logistical issues, and that's where we are on this issue right now. So my team will be going to Lake Providence in the first week of November, and I hope you will support my recommendation that you adjust your motion to be a deferral rather than to be a approval.
Dr. Beebe. Thank you, Ms. Jones. Superintendent White, I do appreciate the recommendation because I have possession of some documentation that indicates a misrepresentation as it relates to this application and the serious allegations. So, you know, despite the quality, if there are improprieties involved, then I think it puts it in another arena, if you will. So you're saying defer until December, at which time will there be an investigation of those
we've looked into those and did not find those to be substantiated. You're referring to an allegation of an event that occurred in 2012. I believe that event was investigated. Was nothing was found to have been substantiated. And frankly, I'm not putting this on you, Dr. Beebe, but I have gotten so many calls over the last 48 hours with people making personal accusations, and I just find it so distasteful. We have a very, very poor part of our state where, frankly, the scores have hovered around 50% of kids reading at basic, much less at mastery. I mean, this is a serious situation. And the thought of providing a good quality alternative is a really good thing that we should be celebrating, not tearing people down. I'm not saying you're doing that, Dr. Beebe, but I've gotten calls where people are doing that. But at the same time, I don't know that I can recommend to you in a small community an enrollment plan where we move kids out in 6th grade just to move them back in 9th grade. You know, I don't know that's the best enrollment plan we can have. And so I want to talk to the charter group. I want to talk to the superintendent. I want my people to walk the community and understand it, because as with every town in our state, if you haven't been there, you don't quite really understand it. And so we got to get that done, and then I'll come back to you with a better plan.
Ms. Bradford. I'm
finished.
sorry, Dr. Beebe.
So Superintendent White, I want to be clear. So we're talking about the East Carroll School District?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, again, I have been presented documentation where there was a letter indicating that an individual had agreed to serve on the board. I think it was notarized, and then that gentleman indicated that was not accurate. So, again, to me, that's a misrepresentation of facts, and I know you said that you've investigated, but
well, I thought you were referring to a different incident. I've got calls about people saying this about this person, this about that person. It's happening on both sides.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have a packet, and board members, you should have received it as well, because I think it was sent to all of you. I received my mail on Sunday afternoon, and it's quite comprehensive. And I want to compliment the superintendent for, in my opinion, thoroughly providing an explanation as to why we should not, why this board should not approve that.
I guess I just find, frankly, that, whatever's the case and what's not, it's important that we look into it. I just have found the personal element of this particular application just highly distasteful, and we should look at it on its merits. We should make a proposal. We should make a decision on the merits. I'm bringing you 2 facts on the merits. One, I think the academic plan is good, but we can't plan outside the context of the community. And this is a very, very unique community. There are only 7,000 people in this parish, period, much less in this town. And so I just think we need to go up there. Just give us a little bit of time. My apologies for the last minute drama on this, and we'll come back and we'll make a recommendation.
But Superintendent White, my response is that there are alleged improprieties with the application process, or within the application process. Again, I have received in that packet numerous letters of support for the East Carroll School District. It's my understanding it's a C district. And I have to go back to what Ms. Barrios mentioned earlier, and Ms. I'm sorry, you've said it before, Ms. Barrios, but Ms. Deborah Moe. The fact is that, we have a responsibility to all of our students within the state, traditional public schools as well. And also, when we look at another packet, another committee meeting, the number of charter schools in the state, I think I counted of the list, I think it was 64, 9 are B schools. The rest are C's, D's, F's, T's, NAs. I would think it's non-applicable. But again, why not work with school districts? Why not have the discussion with the superintendent and the school board and the community, and be creative? They may want to come up with a type 1 or type 3.
Ma'am, that's what I just suggested we're doing. We're going up to East Carroll Parish. We're going to have the conversation.
But I would ask that you investigate the allegations.
That's fine.
Ms. Bradford?
Do you need a motion to this effect?
Yes, please. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Substitute motion.
So what we doing?
Okay.
Second, that we would refer on this matter.
Okay, good point.
I want to stay. Okay.
Any other board conversation?
Well, may I amend it to include an investigation of these allegations?
I think we are not an investigative agency. I'm happy to provide a report. You look at me like that. We're not an investigative agency. Is that a surprise to you?
I've been in human resources. That is our job. Investigate, document, and report.
We are happy to provide a report back to you about any allegations specified by BESE members. Ma'am, you can give me all the looks you want. I just gave you a response. We are happy to report back to you on any allegations specified by BESE members. Does that satisfy your request?
I want it formally addressed and included in the motion to ensure that it is done. And I have another issue that I'm going to address with you later to confirm my reason for adding it to the motion.
Okay, we have an amendment to the motion from Ms. Beebe. Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a second. Okay. We have some speakers on this item. Angela Nichols? Yes, Mr. Romer.
The maker of the motion has to agree to allow his or her motion to be amended.
That's not accurate.
No, sir.
You don't think so?
That's not
No, sir.
accurate. Once a motion comes before the board, it belongs to the board.
Angela Nichols, but if you disagree with the motion, I would invite you to vote against it, and then it will fall back to the previous motion. George Britton and Valeria Milliken. And Scott Richard.
Oh, Steve.
Ladies first.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Valeria Milliken. I serve as superintendent of East Carroll Parish School Board in Lake Providence, Louisiana. Our school system is a thriving system despite the economic woes that plague the community and which it is located. Approximately 97% of our students are at-risk students. But despite that, we have worked really hard and we've managed to get a school performance of BESE for the last 2 years, and we're going to continue to work. What we'd like for you to know is that we are not the same school district that we were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Years ago, there were only like 57% of our teachers who were highly qualified or who were certified. I'd like to say to you today we have 100% of our teachers who are highly qualified, and we have 99% who are certified. And these are really good teachers. Our success really is the result of several factors. We have a dedicated faculty and staff who take pride in their jobs in the community and the businesses, and they live here and they support our system. And we set expectations and we demand accountability. And we did have some concerns about the application that was submitted to you. And we did say that this application was different from the one that was submitted to us. We did say that this application had some non-residents. We did say that the application that was submitted to you from Leland Jones, owner of a vacant building located on 409 Charles Dean Jones, we gave you a certified copy where actually he said that this building would not be used as a charter school. We have signatures from parents because we too believe in choice. I appreciate Superintendent John White, who's given us this opportunity to improve our school district. But we do have signatures from parents who've signed to show you the validity of that. They've signed, and we have like 159 parents who have signed and say that they reject the charter school. They're saying that they got misinformation when this 97 students application, or this 97 student names that you received saying that they reported that they supported the charter school. Actually, in plain reality, these parents are telling me that they were misled. They thought that Northside Elementary School was going to be open again, and this is a school that we closed in 2012 because we could not afford to fund that school. These parents, these 97 parents said that they thought that Northside would now serve the K through 6 as they had done previously. And this is the reason why they signed, most of them. And I have with me parents, I have people who have supported us, and they're here with us. They are prepared to make statements, but in lieu of what you have decided, I don't know if they want to make statements or not, but I want to be brief and say that I'm very concerned that this charter is misrepresenting information. They said that they had gotten oral information from, and I quote, from the city councilman, from the parish sheriff, from the community civics clubs, parents, community members of East Carroll. All of them, they said this was verbal support. I submit to you that I've given you written support, notarized support from all of these entities, from the mayor, from the members of the Board of Aldermen, from our Chamber of Commerce, our parish hospital, our registered voters, our police, jury, from our hospital, our banks, our businesses, and even our neighboring superintendent from West Carroll Parish, Mr. Richard Sprung, and asking that you reject the present application. And that you and also I have over 600 citizens of Lake Providence who've signed the petition to reject the present application to support the charter school. I know that we trust in the Louisiana Department of Education, we trust in the BESE board, we trust in our superintendent, and we know that you're going to make the decision that's going to be in the best interest of our children in the East Carroll Parish School District. And I have a lot more to say, and I brought cases of things, but I'm going to stop at this point, and I'm going to leave this.
Okay, Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Chairman Garvey, members of the board, Superintendent Milliken, and the group that has come all the way from Lake Providence, especially given the weather conditions yesterday and resulted in 2 of our parishes having school closed today in the Monroe area. Keep those folks in your thoughts. More to the point, a couple of comments. In the years that we have had this dialogue as an elected body and local school districts regarding charter applications, never before have we received this type of documentation, notarized, sworn statements from citizens of a very local community up in the northeast corner of our state that validates and verifies in writing reasons to oppose this charter application and not defer today. The other issue that I'd like to point out is that never before has there been a review process that has missed the boat on an application. At what point does the Department of Education's review process say, hold up, stop a minute, we have some material defects in the application. We have honorable people presenting sworn affidavits regarding misinformation. At what point, as an officer of the court, Mr. Garvey, do we stop and take a step back and say, these are false documents that are being submitted? What role, at what point does the department as a public agency come in and step in and say we need to do more investigation? At any point in the review process, public employees are made aware of factual information or proposed factual information that should be reviewed. It's an injustice to you all as elected board members that you have to be put in this precarious position today to make a decision after you've received a ton of documentation from the local district that needs to be talked about and needs to be vetted. It's unfortunate that we spend, all of us spend thousands of dollars on an independent third-party reviewer, SchoolWorks, to review these processes and review these applications, and nobody caught this. And it comes to BESE on the day of the committee meetings, and we have to air it out in public when it could have been handled in a much more professional manner, but prior to, rather than putting this board in a position and the citizens of East Carroll Parish and the applicants to, in all fairness. We strongly urge and request as a school board organization that the energy and the commitment, Superintendent White, that you made to go into St. John and St. James Parish and explore and work and enter into dialogue with those folks about putting a charter school together, that you give that same commitment in this case and work to understand why the local citizens of East Carroll Parish are recommending denial at this time. We also, as a school boards association, strongly urge and request that you beef up your review process and put more teeth in it, especially when all of you receive, as elected officials and appointed officials, sworn affidavits from folks refuting the evidence in the application. And again, I'll reiterate, you've made some decisions today to defer, you've made some decisions to deny. We'd ask that you be consistent to all applicants and deny this application as well and make it go back through the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott, isn't the recommendation that the board has in front of it for department staff to continue the process and continue the vetting process?
To my understanding, the recommendation is to send a team of folks down into East Carroll Parish and defer this item until December. You have commented repeatedly in your comments, Superintendent White, that this is a good application, which amazes me, sitting in this room after you've received the 40 pages of somewhat documentation of sworn statements. With all due respect, sir.
Well, with all due respect to you, your comment was that the vetting process should continue, and the board is considering a motion for the vetting process to continue. I'm not going to get into an argument with you, but it is a bit of a bitter pill to swallow from a charter school opponent who is staking his claim under the idea that the board's process is permissive when this board is engaged in a number of discussions today, having hard conversations with people where they're turning away charter applicants time after time after time. For you to accuse the process of being permissive flies in the face of every bit of evidence I see in front of me, which is that we're actually making very hard decisions and taking very hard looks at things. This is not easy stuff to make responsible decisions about a statewide issue, and we're taking deep looks into it, and we're making sure not to make careless decisions, and that's why you haven't heard a single affirmative decision yet today. So I don't know what bit of evidence you have that there's any bit of carelessness or that people aren't taking a deep look into things. The process is continuing, and that's why we're continuing to extend the process.
Certainly, I think the record of BESE and the minutes, the official proceedings would clearly reflect that this is an anomaly, what is occurring today, where there are no recommendations for approval. My specific comments were directed at deferral versus denial and making an applicant go back through the process for obvious reasons. And thank you for your time and your courtesy today. I think we're all entitled to our opinions, and to characterize myself as an individual, as a charter school opponent, I would like to discuss that with you at a later date and time in the proper forum. I'm sticking to the facts that were presented today and the sworn statements and the fact that there is outstanding litigation against this body in 2 separate occasions from 2 different organizations in regards to the funding mechanisms, which I was not going to get into today. But that would be another reason to defer every Type 2 charter application.
Okay. The fact of the matter is this body has turned down far more applications than it's accepted. That's a fact. And for you to state otherwise is not true. And that's not an opinion, that is fact. And this board's made very many difficult decisions, turning down applicants that, quite frankly, in communities where they need help. And that's some total misrepresentation, your statement you just made. Absolute, total misrepresentation. And we've revoked charters in communities where they need good choices. We've made very difficult decisions and continue to do so, with all due respect.
Okay, Billy Coleman and Joanne Thompson. Okay. Arlene. Can you help me with that one?
Hampton?
Jackie Folks. Dr. Jackson, Brenda Wingate, Pamela Pearson, sorry, help me again with that one. Sandra Hootzel, Renisha Warren, Morcott Wilson, Sean Bruce. Okay, do we have any further comments, questions from BESE members? Ms. Hill?
I stepped out for a moment, but I just want to make sure I have some clarity. So this charter group, to my understanding, presented false information in regards to the application, Superintendent White, and we're because I received some information.
There has been no confirmation of any false information. We've looked into all accusations and have not found any false information to have been submitted.
Because I have some documentation here that was sent out. I don't know if all board members received the information, but we have sworn statements from individuals. For example, one, James Taylor, who stated that he did not agree to be a part of their board, and I'm just wanted to assure that whatever decision that we make is fair, because we have had some charters that come up and we had to make some hard decisions. And so if this is going on, we need to, as a board, we need to look into it much further to ensure that the information that has been provided is accurate, because I just don't want what has transpired in EBR with one of the charter groups had put false information on application, and then we had to come back and revoke their charter because of the application. So I just need some clarity on how we're going to move forward and what is the decision to move forward.
Well, the recommendation that's on the floor is a deferral.
To defer to do what?
To defer so that my team can go to East Carroll Parish, can visit with the superintendent, can visit with the board, and can understand how this charter group fits with an overall education plan in East Carroll Parish.
Okay. And are we going to look into the allegations regarding the documentations that we have in here?
Any allegations that are brought to my attention by BESE board members, I will provide information that either confirms or refutes to the best of our ability.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Smith.
So, and it is disturbing to board members when we receive letters and information, and we have to depend on who's telling the truth? And I know we're not necessarily an investigative body, but we've got to try to make appraisals and vote and make wise decisions. So at the end of the day, I'm hoping that what I've seen in this letter and the documentation that's been given to me, Superintendent, what I'm hoping is that if we come back and discuss this in December, that even though we don't have to get definitely involved with every personal accusation that's made, but if we can clear up some of the comments and accusations that have been made so that we feel comfortable about this, because it is disturbing. And we've got to try to make wise decisions. When we receive this kind of information in the mail, and it's signed and delivered, FedExed, then, we have to try to, at some point, ask what we hope to be questions that will help us make a wise decision. So as you travel to East Carroll, I hope that when we come back in December that you can say everybody's certified, everybody's a good manager of finances, the whole 9 yards. We have a building and can clear up all those accusations for us.
I agree. I think probably, though Ms. Nichols is here from the charter group and there's a group here, I think probably better not to get into that right now. Probably better just to look at that. They can come back. We can talk those issues through if they still exist in December, and we'll go from there. I agree with Ms. Smith.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion?
I want to know what the motion is.
Okay.
The motion is to defer until December 2014 consideration of the Type 2 charter school application submitted by the Louisiana Delta Empowerment Group and direct the superintendent to provide a report to the board at the December 2014 meeting regarding allegations concerning the Louisiana Empowerment Group charter application.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Now I believe you're
Kingdom.
considering Kingdom, yes, sir.
Kingdom Builders Community Development Corp. Can I get a motion in line with the department's recommendation to deny? Ms. Bofi, can we get a second? Ms. Bradford, thank you. Does the department wish to comment?
Members, I think you see our rationale established in the backup documents. I should add as a bit of context, in this parish, in the past we've supported charter applications. In the parish in the past, the school board administration has supported applications. In this case, the school board administration, however, does not support this, and we share an opinion of the application, which is that there are some strengths, but there are some serious weaknesses related to both the capacity of the board, the statement of demand for the school and whether that demand from families really exists, and the risk management and contingency planning that exists in the school as well. So certainly happy to talk about those issues, but there are kind of organizational capacity questions that we think are at play in this instance.
Okay, do we have any questions, comments from BESE members? Hearing none, we have some speakers. Can we have Doris Robert Robert come down, please? And Alicia Clarkston.
Hi, my name is Alicia Clarkson, and I'm the proposed CEO for Kingdom Collegiate Academy of Excellence. I do want to point out that I'm also a Believe in BESE approved Louisiana Department of Education appointed as well, Believe in Succeed grant recipient. So our model that we propose, an industry-based competency model that would serve the Acadiana region, is not really in question here. One of the things that they pointed out was a demand for our school. What I have turned in and I've sent out to email via the to all the BESE board members was letters of support from St. Martinville, Mayor from St. Mary, from Franklin Mayor, from Youngsville Mayor, as well as Broussard Mayor in support of our school. In addition to that, we've collected over 275 signatures of intent to support, in which 30 of them were from businesses, 245 from stakeholders, of which represents 84% of parents of school-aged children. In addition to that, when we analyzed that data, it showed that within that number, we projected in year one 400 students. And from our signatures that we collected is representative of 31% of our proposed student population. We are appealing to BESE for our charter school because initially we went through Lafayette District and presented our model to the district to operate a CTE-focused high school, charter school for Lafayette District. Since then, we have begun to build coalition through a region, and we have evidence of support from an actual region. And when we look at the data, and I also submitted that to the BESE board members, in terms of the industry-based certifications, the types, and the completions of those certifications from the various districts within the region, the evidence is very clear across all of the districts that there are limited options, and in terms of meeting the demand of the workforce need, also is not evident as well. When we begin to look at the numbers that I supplied, the data that was collected from the Department of Education as well as the Louisiana Workforce Commissioner, we are able to see that we have within our 8 districts within the region, we only have 2 charter schools, for Lafayette, 2 that are elementary approved charter schools. We have 1 in St. Landry Parish and 1 in St. Mary Parish. Other than that, there are limited options for students within our area. And what our school is proposing is a way for students to attain their industry-based certification. We focus on economic self-sufficiency of students and making contributions back into their communities. I have present with me our board president as well as a concerned parent from within the Acadiana region. Also, our CTE director is here as well to address any concerns and also to make statements in terms of our school.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I had good morning, but I see we ran into a good afternoon. So good afternoon, board. I am Doris Robert, and I am a retired educator of 36 years, working and about 20 years with the Career Center. And our board members consist of 7 members, and we have a very solid board, as you can see from the resumes. And we are committed to the idea of kingdom building, and especially the Collegiate Academy of Excellence. And we feel that is very well needed in the community. We also have vested stability, and we are partnered with the Iberia Parish Federal Credit Union as well as Chase Bank with financial planning. We also have adopted our bylaws, governing boards, and we feel that we have a very solid group. First, we have 3 educators, we have a lawyer, we have people that are interested and have worked in investment, and also we have did a lot of strategic planning in our board meetings.
And additionally, what I wanted to point out, also in terms of looking at our model, we presented our model to the Department of Education through the Believe and Succeed process, application process 2 years ago. Once our model was accepted, the next thing was as a leader, for me to lead a successful school, what would I need? I served 10 years as an educator, and so I had never served as an administrator. So through Believe and Succeed, I was able to serve as an administrator. The department invested $77,000 into me to be able to then agree to lead a high-quality school. And what we've put together in terms of meeting all the requirements for our application is evident. The demand for our school is evident. We have the evidence to show that not only is there a demand for Lafayette district, but across various regions within the Acadiana region, there is evidence of support for our school.
Okay, do we have Ann Kohler? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I would like to say forgive me if I talk a little slow right now. I've been in the hospital with my dad for a week and I'm really tired, but I believe in the school and I decided to sacrifice on today even though I have to make a decision for my dad. So I digress from that. But what I would like to say is I graduated from General High School in 1998. The school didn't have much options. Now I am a parent. I live in Vermilion Parish right now. My son doesn't have an option. Yes, the district is a B district, but the school is a D. Okay? I had to pull him out and put him in private school. Every parent, and I know everyone can vouch for that, every parent want the best for their child. If you didn't have something when you was growing up, you want to see to it that your child have it. And everyone is like that. What I want to say about all of this is that I would like to support the school because I will. I already sacrificed. I believe Superintendent White, he mentioned something about if you don't have a strong foundation, you don't have a building. My belief pertaining to this school, the foundation is Christ. And I don't mean to disrespect anyone because the school not just going to accept Christian, going to accept anybody. We have to build up. We may not seem fit or I don't know why the situation is the way it is. If we, if y'all don't agree to it, I really hope that you have a change of heart. And I'm not speaking just to be heard. I'm speaking on behalf of all the other parents that wasn't able to be here. My concern is the children, not just mine, because I also believe that I'm a parent to other children. If I see your child walking across the street and a car about to come, I'm going to hurry up and try to get your child out that street so he won't or she won't get hit. In saying all of that, we are trying to come together to do something different. I will reiterate that the foundation is Christ. We're not being biased. We're just trying to do something different. Many parents can leave an inheritance for their children, grandparents or whatever. But there is grandparents and mothers that would like to try to leave an inheritance in having their child have an option in the community, in their career. Some kids, they drop out of school because they don't have any option. Some of them, when they drop out, they go get their GED. But this particular school, it have a CTE. It's giving them options. So now we're trying to provide that. And we really hoping that y'all have a change of heart, that y'all allow us to reinforce that. They may not can leave money for an inheritance, but they can leave education for an inheritance. And that's all I'm asking. I asked you to, I didn't tell you about my father for you to sympathize. I'm telling you this so you can see that I'm one of the lawyer parents that speak for all the other lawyer parents. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item. Can I get a motion to deny, according to the department's recommendations, the Smothers Academy application for a charter?
I'll so move.
Mr. Guillo, can you get a second?
A second.
Ms. Moranti, thank you, anyway. Do we have any comments from the department?
This is a similar dynamic. This is a district where the board of the school board historically supports charter schools, We've worked with them on a number of other cases. This is Jefferson Parish. In this case, the district does not support the charter application. We don't have a lot of information about the technology integration. We don't have a lot of information in the application about the focus on science and math and how that would be carried out. It was the independent reviewer just overall had a difficult vision of the academic side of the application. There's I could certainly go on, but the story was pretty well told in the backup material that you reviewed, and our recommendation is to deny.
Okay. I don't want to speak for or against the issue, but I would highlight what the superintendent said, which is that Jefferson Parish, well, I'd like to add to it, I think has approved more charter schools in the last 4 years than any other school system in Louisiana. So keep that in mind when you consider whether their denial of this speaks truthfully or not. Anyway, do we have any questions from BESE members? If not, we'll go to the speakers. Okay, we have 2 cards for people that do not wish to speak. Karen Henderson opposes the recommendation, and Demetrius Franklin, who opposes the recommendation, and we have Vincent Bro, who would like to speak, and Ina Miller. Melissa Salazar and Damon Smothers.
Good evening. My name is Damon Smothers. I'm a psychologist and also the proposed CEO for Smothers Academy. I have in my possession a list of about 400 signatures of support that we have for this school. A quality education is what we're offering. We think that SchoolWorks' recommendation is flawed in many capacities, and we'd be happy to talk to you about them, Superintendent White, one at a time, in this venue or at another time with the entire body that we have, even our back office support folks and the CPAs that we have, everybody that's involved in the academy. For us, the vision was not just about educating kids, because the demographic that we intend to serve is most likely going to reflect Orleans and Jefferson Parish. It's about saving lives. It's not just about going on to college or graduating from high school, going on to college. It's a matter of life and death. SchoolWorks said, and you'll hear a recurring theme throughout this process of us explaining this, SchoolWorks said that Smothers Academy has a curriculum that's sound. They say that in our initial review. Our budget for years 1 to 5 is sound. Our governing board of the academy was also applauded as being very motivated, very competent based on our levels of experience and business experience in education. The culture and our theory of change was applauded as being something that these young men would be have a very good job of understanding our culture, because it's driven from the time they enter the school to the time that they leave. In fact, SchoolWorks even said that our charter has a high likelihood of success. Now, for educated people, we have a problem understanding how you can say we're going to have a high likelihood of success and then deny us. All those other things that they complain about were minuscule in comparison to the high likelihood of success. Our children deserve high likelihoods of success. Our academic design and expectations are reflective of current successful charters. That's another quote from SchoolWorks. Anything the Department of Education has asked us to do, all the reviews, all the meetings, all those things we've done. We've clarified and re-clarified ad nauseum, and we still aren't clear, even with the recommendation, of what they really want, other than complaining about an after-school STEM program that it's already in existence, and we actually have a NASA engineer that's actually doing it. So I'm just going to ask that you all please reconsider for our kids. We have everything identified, back office support, we have a building, we have finances, we have all those things that's necessary for the school to be a high quality charter for these boys in Orleans or Jefferson Parish.
Mr. Smothers, can I ask you, you said you have a building?
Yes.
What area of the
we
parish?
have identified RELU in Jefferson Parish as in our application that we had, and we also have been in negotiation with the Archdiocese for a number of buildings that are available. One of our board members actually works with FEMA and actually oversees that process.
And RELU, thank you. Wait, which area is RELU?
That's Wagaman area.
I'm sorry, where?
Wagaman.
Okay. And the Archdiocese properties would be on the West Bank also?
We have numerous properties that we have identified.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you.
I'm Kimmick Smothers. I'm the current board chair, outgoing. The incoming board chair is Mr. Donald Jackson, who couldn't be here today. He's currently the assistant principal at Benjamin Franklin High School. He's been involved in this process since the beginning. And he will be replacing me, should Smothers Academy receive its charter. In this 2-year process, I've realized, I'm also a trained licensed attorney. In this 2-year process, I thought about what I would say today that had not already been said in one of the 3 capacity interviews. And one of the things that I found consistent throughout the process was a pervasive attitude among the reviewers that indicated to me that they were suffering from a soft, how do I put it? A soft bigotry of low expectations. And in that, what it causes is we kept hearing the same theme throughout the process about us being ambitious. Now, I've heard here today how the board touts its expectations, and holding charter schools to high expectations is a good thing, and I think we can all agree on that. But for a charter applicant to be referred to as ambitious, simply because as a board we refused to, in a capacity interview, agree to lower our standards based on challenges or difficulties with at-risk or pre-risk kids actually achieving. Now, I think the citizens of Louisiana would find it quite disturbing, especially the in excess of 400 signatures we have in support of Smothers Academy, that the independent reviewer finds it a problem that the applicant has ambitions for their kids. I'm a product of public schools, and it wasn't necessarily beat into me that I would achieve. It was an expectation. And the expectation has driven our research-based, data-driven approach to education. I'm very confident in our board's capacity to govern. I'm very confident in our leadership team's collective and individual experience. And I am here today to request that the board go against the recommendation of SchoolWorks and approve the charter for Smothers Academy Preparatory School for Boys.
Mr. Smothers, if I could ask, not that it's really relevant to the issue at hand, but out of curiosity, you said you were a product of the public school system. Was that in Jefferson Parish or Louisiana?
No, I mean in terms of my education.
And what
Orleans Parish.
Orleans Parish, okay, great. And the next speaker?
Orleans Parish.
Oh.
You said Mr. Smothers, too.
I know, I'm sorry.
I am J. Vincent Brown, the proposed school leader for Smothers Academy Preparatory School for Boys. All of us obviously currently reside either in Jefferson Parish or Orleans Parish and have children who've either attended the public school systems there or are currently attending. With that being said, it is with the utmost sincerity and confidence that I ask you all to reverse your decision to deny our charter application. Buy-in throughout the iteration of this process, we have again and again answered any question asked of us. And not only had we answered that question to what we understood to be an affirmation, but were actually applauded for our effort in That goes on to say that SchoolWorks, as Mr. Smothers so handily pointed out earlier in his speech, not only applauded our leadership team, they've applauded the academic program, the operational design. They've also applauded the after-school programming, all to, at the end of the process, offer a denial, which has us in a total state of confusion to be awarded throughout the process and then be told no at each iteration, both the local level and then again at the state level. And as I understand it, there's been some question about what technology integration means, what blended learning means, and obviously these are some of the latest buzzwords in education. But for us, it's simple. We're offering an education like no other. In fact, when most of the persons who have signed this charter petition hear the description of Smothers Academy, they believe it to be a private school because of the level of expectation, because of the demand that we're placing on parents, because of the demand that we're placing on students. With that being said, technology integration to us, because of the Common Core and the PARC assessment that is now a requirement here in the state of Louisiana, means that our students beginning at kindergarten will have the opportunity to work with computers in every lesson in every classroom. It does not mean we'll be offering an online blended instruction program as most people assumed. Here again, we clarified that. We were applauded for that answer, but still received a denial. There's so many small questions that were asked because basically with the constraint of the application, we couldn't give an elaborate explanation, but when we did offer further information, we were told that's wonderful. That's in line with the successful charter. However, we're still receiving a denial. And it is for those reasons and several others, if we have been chosen by SchoolWorks as online with other successful charters around the country, then I again don't understand why the denial is so prevalent at each level, both local, despite the organized confusion that was Jefferson Parish throughout this process with the superintendent stepping down. Everyone involved with the charter office stepped down, so we didn't even get any information until we received it actually from Mr. Superintendent's office. We had asked on several occasions to meet with Jefferson Parish because we had met with the superintendent's office prior to our application, and they were in full support, which again is what has us so perplexed as to how we went from a full state of support to a denial. And with that being said, my personal experiences in education span greater than 20 years. I've been involved with charters here in this state with their successful implementation and several other states, as well as public and private education. And looking at the model that some of these, who I consider the best and brightest minds to be in this assembly of leadership team for Smothers Academy, as well as experienced professionals, we just can't fathom what is it that we're missing that has us in a denial phase. Because the last statement we were told was that there was a question about supplemental programming. So if everything else is in order, why is it that our answer to the question of supplemental programming can't be accepted and we move forward? So again, I ask that you all look past the original recommendation and allow us to be approved and educate the students of both Jefferson and Orleans parishes.
Okay, BESE members, do we have any questions? Yes, Mr. Romer?
Was this y'all's first time to go through this process? I don't recall meeting you gentlemen before.
No, this is our first time with Jefferson Parish this past year, and appealing to the state level.
And you've never been to the state level before?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
Have you been in other parishes before?
Orleans Parish is where we attempted also before we went to Jefferson Parish.
Any other comments? If not, I'd like to give some. I would say that your presentation here today is very impressive, and I would encourage you, if this board denies your charter today, to please try again next year. My guess is that the department will give you plenty of help in polishing and improving the application if you're willing to go through again for a second year. I've been involved in several charters that got denied the first time around, that went back and improved their application and ended up being very successful. So I would suggest, depending on what happens today, that y'all continue. And I would appreciate having another good charter school come to the West Bank of Jefferson Parish.
Well, we appreciate that, and I just will add this one particular fact. In the period of time that I've been involved in this charter review process, there have been more murders than the number of students we seek to enroll in our first year at Smothers Academy in K through 6. And although I can't sit here today and point out a causal relationship, we can all agree that there is definitely a positive correlation between poor education and the violent crime that we currently experience in that particular metropolitan area.
If I may, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Chair, I would also like to add that we were working hand in hand with Jefferson Parish at the outset of this process. Because one of the things we wanted to do is be an education partner, not be a standalone, off in the sunset saying we can do it better. But instead, we recognize, obviously, the achievement gap currently in existence with minority students in Jefferson Parish and Orleans Parish, because we are aware that Latino and African American students are achieving at half the success rate as their Asian and Caucasian counterparts. And we'd obviously like to get in and try to help close that achievement gap. And again, I just ask that you all reconsider, because we've been told that our academic program is outstanding, our operations are outstanding, the budget is in line with what needs to be in a successful charter. So, I mean, if nothing else, if you all do not see fit to overturn the decision, would be willing at least to give us maybe some more information as to where it was that we missed the boat, so that we could be successful in the next process.
So you do not feel that you have any understanding of where, that there are any problems with the application?
At each opportunity to provide supporting documentation and clarification, we've done so. In the capacity interviews, we've been, it was indicated to us that the questions were answered satisfactorily. Then when we receive the actual review response, it's as though there was some sort of miscommunication. One of the sticking points was an extracurricular enrichment program for second grade STEM. And, you know, with all due respect to SchoolWorks and the contract that they signed to provide the service, of the review service, I think they overstepped their boundaries by requiring things that BESE itself doesn't require. And it became a sticking point. Our ambition became a sticking point. We were asked by show of hands, who would be willing to lower the expectations? And that's not something that we discuss in board meetings. The whole purpose is to have high expectations. If, in fact, we do see the need to make adjustments to our curriculum, or a particular teacher who needed more professional development, we have everything for that in place. And at each turn, it seemed to be something small but different than what we had discussed and clarified.
So let me tell you what my conversations have been with my staff about the proposal, and granted, you all are obviously a lot closer to it than I am, and they're closer to it. I mean, I'm very interested in a kindergarten through 6 school that serves young men in New Orleans. We need more elementary schools in New Orleans, and I think the model is very compelling. As Mr. Romer said, well, frankly, most applicants don't get through the state process on the first round. This struck me as a pretty obvious candidate for just a second go-round process. As you said, I think there are some areas for moderate improvement. Let me read to you what I thought were the most compelling elements that we lifted out of the SchoolWorks review. And I don't want to debate them, but I'll just share with you, just for transparency's sake, what I thought the most compelling pieces were. It said that the core academic program does not reflect the mission of the school. There was not much information provided regarding how technology integration and focus on science and math components of the applicant's mission would be integrated into the core academic program. It's instead part of the after-school program, which is optional for students. Overall, the applicant did not demonstrate how the school day academic program would satisfy the stated mission. So I say that as a bit of evidence. I'm sure that's not new to you. I'm sure that's been involved in the discussion, but I don't consider that a trivial thing. Like, I think that's a significant thing. And we don't need to debate it here, obviously, but I wanted the board and you to know that I don't think that the issues that have been raised are minor, and I would imagine there's been some dialogue. I hope that the dialogue will continue. I do think that the board should know we view this as one that should go through the process again. We're hoping it does get to a point of success because we believe it's a good model. We have an all-boys upper school in New Orleans. We do not have an all-boys lower school in New Orleans, and we think this would be a good addition to the system in Jefferson and Orleans. And I don't know that I have a lot more to say about it than that, but I very much appreciate you all being here and for your presentation.
I'd like to have Jay Vincent, would you please explain, because again, we go back to the recommendation that had some inaccuracies and actually some false statements in there that really didn't represent our program. That's why we continue to give explanations and clarifications to the things that they didn't understand, and they came back with the same response as if they didn't read it the first time. So could you explain that situation?
Well, and again, Mr. Superintendent, obviously I know you don't want to debate issues back and forth, and quite certainly we don't want to rub anyone the wrong way. However, like you said, in the mission statement, the mission seemed to be very, very detailed, and they were a bit confused as to what elements of the curriculum actually supported the mission versus supplementary programs supporting the mission, and how all of that fit together in terms of the actual curriculum. One of the things that I don't believe SchoolWorks really got a good understanding of was that within the technology integration, our actual chosen curriculum is that of core knowledge, which has actually been listed as one of the top 5 common core curriculums in the country, and is very much research-based and is outweighing successful measures of all other curriculums that are currently being instituted, not only in public schools, but several charters across the country. With that being said, we attempted to explain to them several times that obviously the focus on science and technology as well as mathematics, was already integrated within the curriculum, and that simply our supplementary STEM program was an extension of that to continue not only what was being done in the classroom, but to also give them other opportunities to experience the STEM program in its fullness, allowing kindergarten students up to the 6th grade obviously to not only construct projects and participate in math and science competitions based on the regular curriculum, but then we were bringing in a NASA engineer who has a current and successful program at McDonald 35 High School, who is going to be overseeing the program. So again, at every iteration, we tried to answer at our best attempt what their question was, and as Mr. Smothers so handily pointed out, although we had given what was deemed to be a lucid answer, what was deemed to be an acceptable answer by SchoolWorks, then when we received our feedback back from SchoolWorks, it went back to the original point as though they had never heard any of the explanation we provided.
Mr. Gordon.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Beebe.
Superintendent White, it seems to be a common thread because we've heard from other groups that obviously SchoolWorks representatives are not hearing or asking the right questions, or there's some misunderstanding, miscommunication. Could you address that certainly in future cases?
Well,
I've heard it several times this morning that one lady said she pointed out similar concerns that SchoolWorks is not addressing or adhering to what they are presenting, and so therefore they're denying.
Well, first of all, I would say that most groups, and maybe I should have said this at the outset, you're not seeing most charter applications today. Most groups withdrew from the process. They got the recommendation, they understood it, and they withdrew. That's the vast majority. You are hearing the 7 or 8 that continue to basically press the case because they have some quibble with it, and I'm not saying that out of any disrespect. So I think you're seeing the groups that do. And frankly, I've been doing this for a while. I think that's a natural part of the process. People have different perspectives on the issue. I think that's natural. What's important is that I think we work through it, and I think that will come with just ongoing dialogue. I recognize it's a cumbersome process. If I didn't mean it, I wouldn't say it. I do think it's an important model. We did see a lot of strengths in the application. I think that came out of it. It's an area that's needed, both at the grade level and the type of model you're proposing. If I didn't think it was worth your time to reapply, I wouldn't say that it is. I think it is. It just strikes me as most type 2s apply more than once if they get approved, and I think this is a candidate for that situation.
My name is Ina Miller. I'm here as a parent. I would like to say that we do need Smothers Academy.
Can we get a card filled out for Ms. Miller? We do? Okay. Thank you.
We do need Smothers Academy in our community in New Orleans. I was also a product of New Orleans Public Schools. And also, I've noticed, I'm also an educator. I've been in education for the last 20 years as a certified special ed teacher and in other capacities. We do need Smothers Academy. We do need a foundation for our young boys, our young males in our community in New Orleans and in Jefferson Parish. We see what is going on every day in the news. Education or lack thereof will cause these things to occur, and we need to have good education background for our students. So I would like for you guys to approve their recommendation for the charter.
Okay.
My name is Melissa Salazar. I have been teaching for 17 years in an inner city school in California, the largest K-8 school district. And I am one of the original authors of Smothers Academy. And I've just observed in all my visitations here the plethora of charter schools. I see the quantity, but I'm not seeing the quality that minority students deserve. And I believe that the Smothers Academy charter application has noted the high quality and well-rounded education that is similar to high-performing schools. Smothers Academy instructional methods and curriculum are rooted in successful, scientifically based research. The instructional practices and curriculum go above and beyond Common Core standards and teaching targets. Many years of research and planning have been poured into Smothers Academy, and this is demonstrated in the solid and sound budget also. The handpicked leadership team consists of Louisiana's best and brightest educators and administrators. The curriculum is designed to challenge advanced students and provide intervention for struggling students and to take them to a higher level. The time has come to make a change and grant the opportunity to provide the students with a sound, solid, and quality education here in Louisiana.
Thank you. Okay, BESE members, do we have any further comments or questions? Ms. Moranti.
I was just looking at your impressive list of those who were involved in your process, and as faculty member at Xavier University, we hold this priority for the education of black males very seriously. So I think as you may continue your process in this, the Division of Education and Counseling at Xavier might be very interested in looking at this as a future partner.
Absolutely. We would welcome the partnership.
Today. Ms. Bofi.
So this comment is about what we've done this morning so far with these similar recommendations, and I want to start with a question for Superintendent White about how many of the schools started in this process, because I'm looking at 4 on the list here.
For
The schools that we have recommendations for, and you talked to Dr. Beebe about the fact that a number of schools decided to withdraw from the process.
17, I think we started 17 type 2s, I think is what we started with, yeah.
I mean, these have been some very difficult conversations this morning, and I appreciate the passion that the different groups have brought and the desire to bring high quality options for kids. But I want to let the staff know how much I appreciate their hard work to get from that 17 down to the 4 that we have here, because I can only imagine what kind of work they've done over the last few months with this to get to these recommendations. So
yeah, and I think, just to put some perspective on it, I mean, the groups are at varying stages of development.
Right.
And they're in varying parts of the state. I mean, if you think about the complexity of Greater Grace on the West Bank, these gentlemen and ladies in New Orleans and Jefferson, East Carroll, Grambling, which has been in existence for a century, all these things, it's just takes a little bit of time to process and figure things out. And I know people want decisions made on the right timeline. These are startup organizations, and getting confidence we can invest millions of dollars and put hundreds of kids in their trust. It just takes time. I think that out of this process, we have had a tradition of culling a pretty good group, and type 2s are doing well across the state. And we feel good about them, and I think we'll continue that. I appreciate the board's support in making hard decisions, but I think there are groups like these that ultimately will be quite successful in our state, and I appreciate your support of that.
And the other thing that I wanted to say is that I realize some of the people who had the same concerns have left already, but just to let you know that while it's really hard to say not yet to a group who's passionate about providing high quality opportunities for children, the only thing harder than that is when we have a school that is operating, that have children in the school, and that we have to make a decision about ending the charter because it's not serving the children. So I just want to provide that perspective to you in terms of what this work is like. So when people bring applications forward and they're just not there yet, I know that's hard to take, but it's only worse when we get down the road and there are children who are in the school. So I appreciate the work that you've put forward, and then the other groups who've been here earlier today. And I look forward for all of our children having only great options.
Okay, BESE members, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item.
That concludes the agenda.